Everyone, looks like it happened again. Frickin' YouTube screwed me. Well, it's a Q&A session, so I'll answer some questions. Oh, hello. So I'm just looking at a few things. Seemed I got screwed over again. Not sure how many people are gonna get this. I've switched computers, basically. This is the thing that happened. Here, I'll show you guys. Yep, we're on. So basically, this computer here, dead. So I'm using the Mac. Because of that, I don't know what happened. I thought OBS was connected properly. Just all failed, but nonetheless. Let me just find something. Oh, hello. Is this? I just want to find the link and post it. Post it while I'm live. I'm doing it all live now. Whatever. Whoever comes. So, just want to say thank you first of all to everybody, because last year I was under 1,000 subs, and this year I basically rechanged everything and started again, started learning how to edit properly, and now we're at 10K, so holy crap. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for coming along for the journey. I got some more stuff coming through. Obviously, I find it hard to find the time to produce proper content, but I do have 3 videos I've recorded. I just need to edit them to upload. So enough with the channel updates, and thank y'all. Thank you everybody. Thank you. But we'll go through. This is a Q&A session, so we'll go through some of the questions and answers now. Hello everyone in the chat. Kimberly Marshall, Agent09, Tim Sim, and Internet Explorer's here as well. Howdy everybody. So, I think I'll go through the Telegram, maybe I'll go through the YouTube ones first. So for the YouTube ones, let's see, we got Krista Porapikian, 8414, who asks the question, in Satan Eon, Giorgiani posits the data centers and the technological infrastructure of the digital age are manifestations of an Ahrimanic force, a mechanistic, materialistic power that seeks to imprison consciousness with a lifeless, deterministic framework. If this is true, could we understand the rise of global digital networks as not merely a technological evolution, but a metaphysical war for the human spirit? Okay, so that question's pretty sexy and pretty involved, and kind of needs to we need to explain also Giorgiani's positions there, because he's kind of, pro matter. I'm not sure you would call him a materialist in the base materialist sense. But so the whole, I haven't read Satan Eon, as that a disclaimer. I've only seen Giorgiani's interviews about it. So the whole thing with the technological infrastructure is, if you've got a lot of data, you can predict things, and predictive models affects the world. Like, there's that whole thing about the stock market being random, but the best, the more predictive models you have, hey Tyler, welcome. The more predictive models if you have a model that can predict the stock market, and you use it, it makes the stock market less random. And so there's this problem where you start to map out human consciousness and behavior. Things that appear to be random start to become more deterministic. Like, if you had a perfect model of the stock market, or of the market in general, you would create a balanced market in that sense. The market would just become balanced because you could perfectly predict it, and then you could just, stocks in and whatever. And so it's this thing of, it's not about digital information, it's about the ability to amass so much and computate so much data. You can kind of create these models. And the way I like to look at it is, Dune, the book's Dune. You've got people who have prescience, and it's hard because in the movies it's not described, it's not really presented really well. And I love the Denis Villeneuve movies. He does it justice, but he does the character drama part of it, and a lot of the esoteric things about prescience are kind of left in the books, which, it's hard, he couldn't fit it in there. And it's a bit of a shame because I saw Arrival, which also Denis Villeneuve made, and Arrival is a better characterization of like Dune prescience than freaking prescience in Dune is, in my opinion. But prescience in Dune is really interesting because you've got this guy who can see into the future, but then there are other people who can see into the future, and there's this whole thing about like, if you can see into the future, do you have free will? And if there are two people that can see into the future, if you look into the future, you kind of change that future, in a sense, by looking at it. As, your reactions, whatever you do in the world, are now compounded by the fact that you have a kind of vision of that future, and that can emotionally impact you. And that can then, it like leaves, what is it called? They call it like temporal waves. So there's this thing where if two people can see the future and one person views a certain future, the other person, upon viewing that same future, can feel these waves in temporality, and they can know that someone else viewed that future. It's this really interesting concept that was in the early Dune books, and he doesn't go into that often, because what's the whole thing in the later Dune books? The whole thing in the later Dune books is prescience and the ability to see human future crushes humanity and makes them mechanical, and it's the golden path, that whole kind of thing. Everyone walks upon my golden path now, says the God Emperor, and he has this really totalitarian dictatorship. But the whole point of that is it then breeds a type of human that cannot be seen by prescience. And then in the future books after that, then there's this weird thing that's prescience that's not prescience, like the character Miles Tegg has this double vision where he can kind of supposedly see things without being there, and it's kind of prescience, but it's not. And because he's kind of a Kwisatz Haderach, but he's not, and they don't even want to define it anymore. But there's this whole thing, it's like this ability to create a deterministic world crushes humanity, but that pressure arises something new out of humanity, which then is a new kind of a form of chaos, and then that allows more freedom, and then the more freedom you have, then eventually that the freedom allows you to create, and then you can create, I guess, better models, better determinism, better forms of prescience, which then would lead to more tyranny, which would then, and so it's this more of a process, and you want that process to progress. You don't want to stagnate for what is it in Dune? The God Emperor is alive for like 3K, 4K, 4,000 years. 4,000 years of stagnation. That's too much stagnation for Giorgiani. He just wants to accelerate. He's kind of this, not an accelerationist as like a political accelerationist. Giorgiani has this weird like esoteric accelerationism where it's like, no, maximize creativity and the ability for humans to see multiple perspectives, that kind of thing. So anything that can, and he's pro free will and things like that. So there's some interesting things. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but that's how I kind of feel on that topic. Now let's see everyone in the chat. I hope your channel really grows. Your content is educational and frickin' funny. Thank you, Marshall Esotericist. I hope it grows too. What is your take on Christopher Bledsoe, says Tim Sim, being visited by a floating woman who shows him the future? I don't know who that is, so I can't really speak on it. He's visited by a floating woman, so is that an experience that he just has when no one's around? Because then it's just a subjective experience, and then that falls into the category of all other subjective experiences, no matter how beautiful they are. Like, people can have, and I don't mean to be, a subjective experience, whatever. It's more like, no, it's a subjective experience. It can be amazingly profound and transformative for the individual, but it's not good enough for, a hermetic occult path that you, I guess, share with others. Now, let's keep going. I'm just looking at the chat here. Is the fixation on internet drama a spiritual neurosis? Or even worse, a spiritual cancer that prevents your path from awakening? Fixation on drama in general is the crippling need for humans to have stories. Everything is a story. In fact, if you want to learn something, the best way to learn it is to make it a story. Like, learning math in school sucks. Learning math on YouTube is great. Why? Because then they don't just teach you this math problem. They're like, and it was first designed by this, Georg Cantor who had 3 wives and married his cousin or something, and they tell you this story of math. And that embeds the knowledge in you. We are beings that are narrative driven. And so supplying humans with, I guess it's kind of like, the difference between a prime steak and just a bag of Lay's. A bag of chips, crisps, a bag of crisps with no nutritional value. Internet drama is just that. It's just fulfilling the human's need for narrative. But, hey, Richard, have you ever a whole Coca-Cola bottle? What have I ever what? Slammed a Coca-Cola bottle up my ass? Or what are we talking about here? I mean, I guess I am looking pretty pro-Coke here in the red, but let's keep going. Next question, Self-Dribbling Basketball on YouTube asks, thoughts on deja vu? Thoughts on what deja vu is? Any times in your life where it felt significant? Deja vu is just, I would say, that's just kind of like a subsection of synchronicity. And, proper synchronicity, not just like the universe is telling me I need to leave my wife or whatever. The universe is telling me I need to, smoke a bag of whatever, or just indulge in my base desires or something. It's like, no, synchronicity is usually something profound. And deja vu, it's almost like the little brother of synchronicity. It's not necessarily something profound, it's just the repetition of something, or the feeling that something has occurred again. But maybe it's the first time it's occurred, but you feel like, wait a second, is this a moment of deja vu? It's something is, in that moment you could say something is calling to you through memory. Something is kind of tipping you off that there's something maybe significant about this. So, and it's hard because it's like, what part of that is, just, base schizophrenia in that sense? That whole kind of thing of, when I say base schizophrenia, I mean, the kind of person who sits in front of the TV and watches the news, but then the part of their brain that usually lights up when you have a realization just starts lighting up, but there's nothing happening. They're just watching the news, and so they're watching the news and they're like, yes, the people in the TV, don't you hear it? They're speaking to me. I need to kill the president. Like, that's what I mean by like base schizophrenia, basically. What have we got? Agent 99 in the chat. Sufi mystics danced. Chief Joseph had the ghost dance. Gurdjieff spoke of the Caucasian knife dancers. What is the most esoteric dance? Oh, did someone just donate 10 there? Oh, thank you, Sir Willie Smalls. Thank you very much. Agent 009. So about the Sufi mystics. Is that you, August Sunny? / Dylan, are you the same person? Blue Eyes White Dragon? Have you been changing your name continuously? The most esoteric dance, damn. I mean, it's hard because it's like most esoteric. There are dances that are, and when you say esoteric, what do you mean? Because, ballet has an esoteric side to it. Like, it's basically describing feminine energy when you watch ballet. And then when you watch a male ballet dancer, they don't do female stuff. There's a male ballet dancer aesthetic. And what does he do? The male is this solar force that then becomes like an axis. That, he doesn't necessarily jump and do all these flourishy things like a female. He's the axis, and he grabs the woman and she dances around him, or he holds her up and spins her. And it kind of shows this dynamic nature between masculine and feminine energies. But then different dancers, and I mean, different dancers can do different things or describe different esoteric elements. So what's the most? I mean, I haven't seen every single dance in the entire world, bruh, but there are definitely esoteric sides to these traditional dances. Meditation on the Tarot is the best book I've ever read from Newell Hill. Yes, based. And so Willie Smalls, hey Richard, thanks for your content. I was wondering if you had read Robert Monroe's books. If not, I believe you will enjoy them. What role does astral projection play in your worldview? So here's the Robert Monroe. I respect Robert Monroe quite a lot. I've got a bunch of astral projection books, which I also need to get through, but I'm only one man. What role does it play? It used to be something more important to me than it is now, because I used to see it as something that if you could master this, this could be like a tool of proof. Like, because, what's the whole thing with esotericism? It's like, show me a demon. Why are they afraid of cameras? That kind of thing. But, as you refine your esotericism, as you refine your occultism, a lot of the more physical stuff ceases to matter. But there's still stuff there, obviously. You want to do some physical alchemy every now and then. But, like, that, and I'm not necessarily proving it to other people, but prove to me as well. Like, the ultimate rock that skepticism cannot shake is experience. So if you have an astral experience, even if you don't meet another person who's also awake in the astral, and then you coordinate and wake up at the same time, and then call each other on the phone and this is what I saw and what did you see, and intuit objective kind of reality in the astral world or something. Even if it's not that, even if you just have an astral experience where you fly and you go to a friend's house and you see them on their computer and they're wearing a blue top, and then when you wake up in the morning you're like, hey, were you on the computer last night watching, Jenna Ortega feet pic videos on YouTube wearing a blue top? And they're like, what? No. And you're like, were you wearing a blue top? And they're like, yeah, I was. But what was that second thing, bro? It's like, that can be proof for you. And that can then, once you have that, that's then sort of like, oh my God, this works. If that works, what else works? And so for me, astral projection seemed like something important, because it was like, this is something that can be done by me, or this is something that can be done by a group of people. And as long as you train and go hard, you should have an experience, and it could be something that, then leads to this of you can then use it as a tool to prove other things in esotericism. But as time went on, I started to see the bell curve in astral projection. So there were, no matter how hard you try, people fall on a bell curve of astral projection. It's like, there are some people who you give them the astral practices, and on the first day, it only takes a week, they're here on the bell curve and they're just experts instantaneously. And then some people, as long as they put in effort and they do the practices properly, they will fall somewhere in here. Some people will get good results. Some people, no matter how hard they do, they'll get average results. Some people, they'll grind and they'll grind and they'll grind and they'll get all right results. And then some people, no matter how hard they try, no matter how hard they do it, they'll always get meh kind of results with astral projection. And it's like, what's the deal? Because the point wasn't that, there's this bell curve. The point is that this is something that everybody could do. So it ceased to be how do I astral project? And it more became, how do you get someone from the bad side of the bell curve onto the good side? And that seems to be what higher esotericism, high magic is geared towards. These kind of things where you either work with certain entities to gain an esoteric knowledge, to then crystallize certain energies within inside yourself, to then create something immortal that perhaps your consciousness can pilot. And it's there's this process that then leads up to a perfect form of astral projection where no matter who you are, you get to this state, and then that's when you can, during the day, you can just sit down and concentrate in a chair and come out of your astral body. The amount of people who can do that are very, very small, but potentially everyone should be able to do that if they crystallize a higher being body and have the correct development of consciousness. And so merely having a single one-off astral experience, when you're pulling your finger for a month and then you're like, oh, I had a 10-minute lucid dream because I did this one practice where I stuck my finger up my ass for a month. It's that's not good enough. It's good enough maybe for someone who's just interested and they want a little proof that there's something more than just materialism. But it ceases to be kind of relevant, and more the internal alchemy, more the high magic, more the theurgy becomes more important. So where does astral projection play in your worldview? When I began, it was very important, and nowadays I almost have zero interest in it, to be honest. Freaking, I have this automated owned thing in the chat. I need to delete that. This is another thing. I've changed a bunch of things on my account now. I've changed a bunch of things on my live stream. So my live stream is going to have a different aesthetic. But yeah, because I've changed to this freaking Mac computer here. I'm not sure if you can see it. When this computer here, I'm not sure if you all saw, that was my main computer, my main PC, and the graphics card blew up, and a friend of mine, basically Fat Solid, were just like, hey, I've got a computer you can use, and they gave me this Mac, which is so much better for editing, oh my god. But like, I was kind of switching between the two, to like, you know, still streaming on the other one, and then just using the Mac for editing, but now I'm like, recently my PC just straight up died, and so I'm like, okay, move as much as I can before it dies completely, and now I'm trying to do the Mac purely, fully, and so I guess this experience is good because it showed me that something didn't work correctly, and I need to set up OBS on my Mac properly. Jesus Christ. Anyone who got frickin' tips can help a brother out. I'll do a test live stream after this, maybe. So I'm just on my phone now. Martial Esotericist, lol. Everything. Howdy JJ, howdy Ruby Owl. Where's the bookshelf reveal, my friend? People have got to donate to get to it. I'm just like squeamish about it because it's one of those bookshelves, bro. It's impressive, but I've hardly read the books in it. Like, I've read a solid amount of my books over the years, but I'm still barely a quarter of the way. And I'm one of those people as well. You know that meme where it's like a guy proposing to a girl, and then behind them there's like another guy being like, and it's like the guy proposing is like me, and then it's like the girl is like, oh, and it's just like new books that I'm buying, and then the guy in the background like frowning is just like books that I've already bought and haven't read yet, like sitting on my shelf. I read books. I do read continuously, but I also buy more than I read, so I just have this massive bookshelf of books that I haven't read, and I just feel embarrassed that I haven't read them, but it's a good bookshelf. Maybe I'll do a tour one day. Came for esoteric knowledge, staying for Jenna feet pics. Thank you, Shem. Dragon Kratos Kankaras? Dragon Kankaras. That's a based name. Hello, Rich. How do you perceive Jesus through the perspective of early Christian texts, especially through the lens of Gnostic writings? So there's a whole lot of autism around Jesus because they really want Jesus to be something unique. Let me just close my window here. They really want Jesus to be something unique, and he's just... It's like... He's a master, bro. He's a master, and he attained mastery. We should... You know, he says in the Bible, you will attain all the things, you should be able to attain all the things that I do. One day you'll attain all the things or do the things that I do. And it's like, yeah. So all of these things like adoptionism, Nestorianism, you know, Arian Christianity is an A-R-I-A-N, where Jesus was born human and then became divine later. All of those systems, which are all heresies, are all more appropriate because it's like, yeah, Jesus was a dude and then attained mastery. That's the esoteric path, bro. Making him something cool and unique, you know, I guess it highlights Christianity more or something, but it just doesn't really help with the path as far as I can see. So I'm not a Christian. You know, I was raised Anglican. You know, the Church of England, the extra boring, not even Catholic, bro. It was just, I mean, at least it's better than American Protestantism. Ugh. But, yeah, that's how I see it. Jesus was a rabbi that did a lot of exorcisms on people who may or may not have had a doctrine that was Gnostic in flavor. But over time, also a lot of things got layered into Christianity. You know, Neoplatonism, Mithraic symbolism, a little bit of Egyptian theology in there. You know, Apollonius of Tyana, I think some of Apollonius of Tyana's life story was absorbed into Jesus. A lot of things get absorbed into it. And, yeah, a lot of the early Christians were pretty, a lot of their sects, they had parties, bruh. Like, that's why, you know, when Julian, the Emperor Julian, who tried to reinvigorate Neoplatonism, why it never stuck is because when you look at what Julian was doing, he was like, no, we must go back to austerities and pure philosophy and... Like, I get it, but you also look at him, he's like, oh, do less music in this, and, you know, he made his religion boring. Like, if you want to resurrect a religion, Julian, don't make it boring, bro. Like, that was the problem, really. And so, early Christianity was fun, and then they ruined it, and then it's just like 2,000 years of, like, really autistic dogma up the butthole. And it's just, nah, I'll just, in essence, just focus on mystics. Cloud of Unknowing, Swedenborg, a little bit of William Blake, Jakob Boehm. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. Nulul, Richard, what origin story of esotericism do you think is true? Oh, you mean of the human race? Nephilim as the source of the sacred sciences and civilization. What source do I think is true? I think there's a kind of a combo interplay, because I am not convinced that humans have a single origin. Whether it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional, or there are beings that arose from primordial soup or whatever, it's like there seems to be this interplay and overlay of different kind of beings that then become modern humans. What are our origins esoterically? And I mean, the Nephilim thing means that there was a kind of a being that was a human, more like a furtive pygmy from Dark Souls that then bred with angels or something divine. And now we have something that's half divine, half animal. That seems to be the state we're in now. And so what's the animal part and what's the divine part? What are those origins? And it's like, what are we trying to do in the esoteric work? Are we trying to reverse ourselves before the fall and then do something? Or are we just trying to reverse ourselves before the fall and then sit in that state? Or are we trying to reverse ourselves before we even came into creation and become purely spiritual ontological beings? It's like, or are we going to be embodied beings that are then perfected and immortal? That's what I think different origin points, or the different origin points that you accept, will have then different trajectories. So which one do I think is, and which one do I think is true? This is the other thing. Until you get objective consciousness, which I think is a real thing, and I think humans can attain it, Nietzschean perspectivism, just drawing from multiple places, is the best chance. So, as Aristotle says, it's a mark of an intelligent mind to entertain a thought without believing it. You take the sacred scripture and you suspend it. And some things, when you do this continuously with a lot of things, sometimes things will contrast in interesting ways. So comparison is what people usually do, and you don't even need to do that automatically. Your mind just likes to compare things, to be like, this is like this is like this. Contrast is when it's not a comparison, it's where the things that aren't the same are put next to each other. White against black is contrast. And then the way the white and the black molds together, you see like a face arise. So when there's contrast between traditions, something arises. And this is where I am a kind of a soft perennialist, because it's not that I'm going like, everything's the same, bro. The void, shunyata, and uno mystica, they're the same. No, I don't think so. I think there's a difference between Samadhi and all of these different kind of things. But there's a family resemblance, for sure. And there's something that's done, for sure. There's a doing. And so that's where I don't like the people who are like, nah, it's just pluralistic. It's all different, bro. It's just, the difference. It's not like one mountain of spirituality in different paths. There's just different mountains. No, even if there are different mountains, the sky is the same. The empty, void sky is always the same, and that's the thing you notice when you're alone, pure on top of the mountain. And then you bring that knowledge down into the valley where people live amongst objects, and you realize that there's empty space between everything, and it's like, you would have never had that realization in the world of objects. It's only climbing the mountain and being in pure space that you would realize that. But it's like some mountains are higher than others, some are more dangerous than others. There's different paths up different mountains, but nonetheless. What's the story? It's in like one of Kafka's books where there's a guy, is it The Trial? There's some story where a guy comes to the door of, is it the door like a gate of truth? And there's a guardian, and the guy asks him like, what's beyond this gate? Is it truth? And he's like, yeah, there's truth technically, but beyond this gate is another gate and another guardian. And beyond that is another one and another one and another one. And each one is going to ask you a question. Each one is going to, test you and trial you. And the guy's just in like this state of indecision. He doesn't know what to do. And he's just there like worrying, like, what do I do? What do I do? And he worries and pulls his head out and asks more questions of the guardian. And it just makes him more apprehensive. And he doesn't know whether to take this path or not. It doesn't really go to truth. Is he being deceived by the guardian? And then eventually he's there for so long. He's like an old man with graying hair, and his eyesight's failing. He's going blind, and as he's like about to die, he comes to realization, and he asks the guardian, if this is truly the gates to truth, tell me, guardian, why have no other seekers of truth come this way? And the Guardian responds, because this gate was made for you, and now it is closed, and the man dies. And it's like, yeah, that's the spiritual path in a nutshell, bro. In the words of William Blake, I had to make my own system or risk being enslaved by another. Different origin stories will have different purposes, different paths. And it's not even different paths. There are principles that people adopt, like values, and believe, and there are different tools that they use to esoterically embed things within themselves, like meditation will embed certain qualities in you. Certain aspects of ceremonial magic will embed certain qualities in you. And these qualities, once they're sustained in you, like, if you lift weights for a couple of days and it doesn't do anything, but lifting weights over a long period of time, it changes your body. In the same way, meditation changes your body. It builds an attribute into you, which once that becomes stable, something else automatically happens. This is what you're doing, and you're ontologically changing your category of being so that you're no longer a human. I'm like going way off topic here, so I'm just going to keep going. I'm sorry, Nuhul. Silly Willies says, thanks. Ornitok plays, how true is the Hollow Earth stuff? I want to believe. I mean, I like Hollow Earth over Flat Earth, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. Because Hollow Earth at least has traditions where people come from the Hollow Earth land. I don't know many people who come from beyond the ice wall. So I like the Hollow Earth stuff. I'll entertain it. My favorite video of yours is the tripart nature of the soul. Oh, thank you, Ruby Out. That's actually one of the least viewed videos on my channel. And it's one of the ones I kind of like the best, because a lot of people, I think, come to also spirituality via contemplating death. And what happens when you die, and what's this process, and what is it, and what's the thing that survives, and what's its nature, and then that, it's a very interesting kind of talking point. But then, what happens to the soul? What is the, how does it kind of progress? What's its nature? Anyway, that's how I originally, I know it's called the tripart nature of the soul, but how that video came about was actually kind of contemplating the mysteries of death. Tyler says, bibliomania is the only real madness for me, same. Yeah, no, we were all talking about the bookshelf. Better than raised Southern Baptist. Oh, that was to my Anglican thing, yeah. Adamu says, hey Richard, have you ever heard the current age referred to as the reaping or such? That's interesting. No, I haven't. And Tyler says, could you expand upon on Steiner's concept of continuity of consciousness and how that might tie with G's ideas about self-remembrance of observation? Yes. So they were on a similar track. Not really similar, actually. It's hard. This is one of those things. Once again, they were on completely different roads, but also kind of there's this family resemblance that arises if you think about it. And I mean, there's this weird thing. Steiner became more of a Rosicrucian-ish towards the end of his life, and Gurdjieff has these subtle, esoteric Christian Rosicrucian-y things about him. I've even heard people pull out Meetings of Remarkable Men and say the path that Gurdjieff takes in the book Meetings of Remarkable Men, his biography, so-called autobiography, the path that Gurdjieff takes, if you plot that out and then pull out the Rosicrucian manifestos and look at Christian Rosenkranz, who goes to the east and where he goes, the path that Gurdjieff takes is the exact same path as Christian Rosenkranz. So there's these interesting things between Steiner and Gurdjieff, even though they never met. I'm not sure if they even read each other's works, but there's this fascinating thing, and it revolves around this. So if you die as a normal human, you die like a dog. You forget everything. But what if you are awake? And what does awake mean? Awake means that, when you fall to sleep, you are awake. When you die, you are awake. So then when you are embodied again, you have all of your memory. I always like to argue that this is more than any other notion of being enlightened or being in bliss. I don't care about bliss. I don't even care, perhaps, about truth or seeing angels or anything. If you can die and retain your memory, whether it be that you awaken past life memories and you awaken everything and you become a being with a chronology outside of time and space, or you awaken and then from that moment onwards, you never forget from all of your lives continuous after that, irrelevant. If you can keep your memory, you fully have 2 feet to stand on to then seek liberation. So many people, in my opinion, seek liberation, but they become completely deluded, thinking that they found it. And what's the problem with that? If you think you found liberation and you haven't got it, what happens when you die? You die like a dog and you go back to being like everyone else. So there are perhaps, hypothetically, entire schools of meditation, entire systems out there developed by people who are still here in the world now as drunks in bars somewhere. That is not attractive to me. What I want is perpetual consciousness. What I want is eternal memory. So Steiner has this whole take of, he calls it Christ. It's not Christ consciousness like you attain it. It's almost like something comes into you and that thing is like a cushion, so that when you die, your consciousness lays on the cushion as then perpetuated after. It's very, I don't know, but then that's just one description that Steiner gave. I may be remembering wrong, but he gives kind of like a couple, and he has an interesting thing like of, what's his system? Purification, illumination, initiation. And my criticism of Steiner is he's got good theory. I think he's got a lot of substance, but he doesn't have much praxis. Like, you know, imagination, intuition, imagination, inspiration, intuition. It's great. I love it. What about some other things, bro? It can't just be eurythmy and dancing. Like, what's, you know, like just doing like color therapy at a Steiner school? Like, what else is there, Steiner? And yet he goes on and on and on about all these like kind of things, and it's like, we get it. You're a genius. Cool. There's almost too much substance, and then it slowly becomes a theosophy light, where it's kind of, you know, oh, you just be a good person. Be moral, and with 20 minutes of concentration exercises, in 1 billion years, you'll be an enlightened one. Yeah, no. Also, no. Also, screw you. Because I also am completely against spiritual progress in the sense that the New Age idea that, you know, we all just need to be a good person and we're all just going to go to the fifth dimension, bro. It's inevitable. Just Age of Aquarius, we're all going to become enlightened. No. That is absolutely 100% crap. Humanity is not a straight line. Humanity is a circle. Your life is a circle. You may be born spiritual in one life, and then the next life, boom, you're a peasant again and forced to, you know, sell drugs to maintain a lifestyle, to even just feed your family, to do crimes, to create bad karma just because of circumstance. And then another life, you'll be a king. And then another life, you'll be back down again. And another life, it's like this eternal return. I have no faith whatsoever that by being a good person, that you will somehow perpetuate into being a Buddha some billion, million, gazillion, gorillion, 6 million years in the future, in 6 million lifetimes in the future. Like, not even, yeah, no. No, it's just a big no. So I like Steiner's theory. Where Gurdjieff has things interesting is then he talks about this as well, gaining objective consciousness. Where there's this, I don't know about connection. What was the time with Gurdjieff? So Gurdjieff has this idea of awakening, which is connected to higher kind of cylinders, higher cognition. But then he has the idea of higher being bodies. And these are 2 different aspects of his work. And there are too many people nowadays who, and I don't blame them for this. Like, it's a bit weird to talk about higher being bodies. Like, what even is that? Maybe it's metaphorical. I can accept that some people believe it's metaphorical. I'm pro higher being body being a real thing. But the problem with the people who don't disregard higher being bodies, they then turn it into just a game of consciousness. It's just a game of raising consciousness, and it's like, okay, cool, and then what happens? And then you die, and then through the bardos you start to forget yourself, and then, you know, maybe you have a higher consciousness for a little bit, but, you know, going through a birth canal changes the guy. Being bound in biology, again, changes you. Being bound by a completely different culture and those norms change you. Like, if you're born into a Christian family and you start talking about, oh, I remember my past life. If you're born into a Southern Baptist family, what do you think's going to happen? They're going to be like, no, honey, that's the devil tempting you. And they're going to put shit in your head. And if your consciousness isn't locked into your biology properly, that's just going to create dysfunction. And then you're going to forget it as you grow older. And who even says that, I don't know, like the zodiacal celestial influences on your biology are even going to allow most of the attributes you take with you to express properly. You need something so categorically extreme that it can resist, it can do a kind of a biological insurrection, and it can maintain itself through a birth canal, through being embodied again in a completely different set of biological and cultural circumstances. If you can't crystallize something of that level, you're fucked. You're screwed, bruh. And the only thing that's going to do that isn't just, oh, you're going to access the higher cylinders because, you know, I self-remembered on the toilet and I squeezed extra hard. No. The only way to get that is with higher being bodies. And what's the creation of higher being bodies? It involves an understanding of the energies within the body, transforming the energies in the body, maintaining the energies in the body, saturating the body. You know, that's the other criticism about astral projection that I kind of gained later on. It's like, you're here and now, stop trying to escape. You've got a body, use it. This is an alchemical laboratory here. This freaking soft, chubby body that we've all got. Maybe you've made yours hard. Maybe you've made yours hard. Nice. But, you know, the body you have is a vessel. It's a laboratory. It can be used. You may as well use it if you've got it. There are spirits, you know, out there that want to be humans. Why do they even want that besides desires? There's some kind of advantage to having a physicality. And that's what the more tantric schools will do. It's like, yeah, you know, spirituality is great, or, you know, metaphysical things. Oh, you know, but the tantric schools will also be like, hey, yo, there's something you can do with this. And that's where kind of, you know, Steiner has his ways, but he becomes a little too loosey-goosey. And so I like absorbing a little bit of Steiner. You know, I like his stuff on the Christ. He's got some good stuff on the Christ there. If you go on YouTube, just look up his, you know, lectures on the Synaptic Gospels and the Gospel of John. He's got good stuff on the Christ. You know, that was his main reason. Well, there are a bunch of reasons for leaving Theosophy, but one of the reasons is they didn't talk about the Christ enough. So there's Jesus and there's the Christ. His talk about the Christ, I'm much more, what he does with the Christ, I enjoy much more. Yeah, hopefully I answered your question there. Now, there's rumors Jesus traveled before his time written in the Bible. Maybe I'll go, so I'll answer this question from Kay. Time written about in the Bible, like to Egypt and the Far East, and was initiated. Yes, those stories do exist. I'm kind of two minds about them, because it's like, Egypt, sure. But then there are a lot of people who are like, you know, he went to India. No, he went to Tibet. And I'm like, sure, I guess. Okay. I know people seem to fight on where he got his teachings on, and it just becomes I don't know, that becomes more of a thing than the actual teachings themselves. So I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll answer another question from you, the YouTube comments. What first set you down the path of occultism? What would you say was your first initiatory experience? So, I was just one of those people who was born, I'm not built different at all, but I had this thirst when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And I hated it, because no one could answer my question. And it's like, you know when you thirst for something, but you don't know what it is, but you know what it's not. And so people will be like, oh, you know, you should totally come to this Reiki class or whatever, or this gay Kundalini yoga class. And it's like, that's not what I want. But there's something like it. But it's like, you know, I didn't, you know, as a kid, you can't just say, teach me the Hermetic doctrine of the ancient civilizations, mother. Like, I didn't have the concept that Hermetics was even a thing. I couldn't just say that. So I had this thirst for something. And it's like, I knew when I would bump into it, if this was it, and I knew when it wasn't, because it's the thirst. Nothing could quench this thirst. Nothing, and it's just, finally, I think, you know, one day I was in uni, I was like 19 years old, in uni, hating life, walking in between two buildings, and there was a poster on the wall that just said, like, alchemy, Kabbalah, astral projection, Gnosticism, and I'm like, I know what those words mean. And it was just some guy was just doing a lecture in his house. So I went along, and there's like two other dudes in the back of this, you know, in this empty room in the back of this guy's house, and he comes in and he's like, hey everyone, he's wearing like Ugg boots, and he's got a cup of tea, and he just gives this lecture on alchemy, and internal alchemy, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, hell yeah! And I just unenrolled from uni and kind of like dedicated my life to this guy's kind of branch of Gnosticism. And I probably stayed there way too fucking long, to be honest, way too long. But that was my introduction to the Western esoteric tradition. And, through that I learned other names like Franz Hartmann, Eliphas Levi, Dion Fortune, and then reading those kind of authors, that gave me, more, like, now I have orientation, now I can look, now I can kind of understand certain things, now I can, now I can actually have something to actually move along the path with, or I know where I'm going and I know how to orient myself now. I wonder how much more of this I should say. And the long and short of that place also, yeah, I don't know, I kind of don't like talking about the early days because I just find it cringe. Like, the first place you go to is always cringe. It's always cringe in retrospect. Like, at the time I was like, oh my god, this answers everything, but the doctrine was just really vast and kind of loose. And you know how, like, when you read a bit like Steiner's doctrine, he talks on so much stuff that you can delude yourself into thinking, he hasn't mentioned this part yet, but it must be somewhere else. It must be in a book somewhere else. And then you eventually figure out that, like, no, he just never talks about that. He never fills in that gap. And you begin to realize that you actually need to fill in the gap with your own research, with your own intuition. And when you talk to other people who are into Steiner and they just go, and you start talking to them, you realize, you ask them questions, they're like, oh yeah, well, Steiner says, and then you ask them another question, like, well, Steiner says this, and you ask them another question, Steiner says that, and you're like, yeah, but what do you think, motherfucker? What do you think? And that's, the same thing with Gurdjieff, the same thing with Carl Jung, with all of those places. What does Carl Jung say? It's like he regrets creating Jungians or something. This thing happens where people kind of make a system their personality, and if you read outside of the system, they're like, why are you reading those books Steiner has, he talks on that, why are you reading that when Steiner already talks about that? And that's a red flag. So that's why I left my original school, because I realized they were just that kind of person. And in my opinion, general understanding of Western esotericism is literally a first level litmus test, because if you don't have that, you will more than likely fall into some form of sectarianism. Sectarianism, fanaticism, like this guru is better than the other guru. The way you avoid that is general knowledge of Western esotericism. General knowledge and being widely read just kind of on all of it, having that in and of itself is, dare I say, a vaccine or something that helps resist that. Anyway, spent a little long on that question. Joshua Walker, howdy, welcome to the chat. Half Buckeye, morning Richard, howdy, morning Half Buckeye. Marshall, I hypothesize that exalting a master to the degree of godhood prevents one's own journey to mastery, as your libido is invested into their worship instead of your own spiritual cultivation. 100%. Silly Willy, Dark Souls mentioned. No, sorry, Sir Willy, sorry. Hell yeah. I'll just do another YouTube comment question. Why are we dumb and have to learn things? Also, should we care about politics? To the second thing, yes and no. Why should you not care about politics? One, because it doesn't matter what the plebeians... No. One, because politics is a kind of a shit show. Politics, on one level, entangles you too much and draws you away from what matters. But on another level, if a tyrant comes into your hometown and just starts, like, extracting butt tax on everybody, you can't just sit around, because that also, if you don't have a balanced life, that also ruins your practice. So there's some level of, unless you're going to go full ascetic and just leave, then, leave. But if you're going to be in the world in a balanced way, there's some level of understanding of the politic. Because, what is it? It's like, You want to be esoteric. You have a metaphysics. Out of your metaphysics, you draw an epistemology. God is like this. I have a piece of God within me because that piece of God is connected to the God outside, or through esoteric practice can become connected. Then, that's how I gain knowledge. You out of your metaphysics, you draw an epistemology. And then, I have God within me. I also, this part of that I feel within me, I also see in nature. So how I treat nature, how I treat animals, and how I treat others matters. Your metaphysic, your epistemology, and draws into a type of ethos, how you live your life. And your ethos extended, macrocosmic, microcosmic, how do you live, and how should a society run, or how you should interact with a large groups of people becomes a politic, naturally. So having your own, kind of nutting out your own principles, and it's hard because in modern politics it's just kind of lame, because all modern politics have the same problem. Well, actually, they don't have the same problem. What it is, they all have different symptoms and different diseases, but all those diseases, sorry, I worded this wrong, all of the different diseases in modern politics all come from like a core symptom, a core problem, the lack of spiritual center. So I draw my politics from my spirituality. I didn't just become a Democrat because my parents told me to. I didn't just become a Republican because I went to uni and got a political degree or something. I draw it from my metaphysics, from my spirituality, from my, in that way. It's interconnected. So there's really no politic that represents my views in the world. And how would I even describe my politics? Either I have to go on long-winded things and then compare to different things that exist, but then people will just be like, oh, you compared yourself to this political party, therefore you're this. And it's there are so many ways, unless you just crush together a whole bunch of terms, oh yeah, I'm a friggin' archaeo-futuristic, meritocratic, initiatic theocracy monarchist, but where the monarchy isn't royals, it's an occult aristocracy that's generated, through certain tendencies to do with blah blah blah, and it's just and you've got solar punk, lunar punk tendencies in there or something, and people are what the fuck are you even talking about? What do those words mean? And then you have to spend time explaining archaeofuturism anyway, and it's oh, whatever, who cares? So apart from being, I wouldn't say go on marches, and I'm not sure about being active in a political party, unless, go for it if it doesn't, interfere with your own internal principles. Because if you become a self-liar, maybe you can work it into some kind of skillful means. It's hard because I'm not that kind of person either. There is a type of person who was born and is geared to argue, and is geared to, they almost enjoy legalism. There is a type of person who's born to that, even not even biologically, astrologically, somebody can be embedded with those attributes, those Jupiterian attributes. So work through the laws, or work in in a certain constriction of laws, or throughout a culture or something like that, or who wants to lead naturally. There's a type of person who may be able to go into politics and still be spiritual. I am definitely not that kind of person, and my politic isn't really represented in the world. So as long as I can, I guess, pay rent and kind of live a balanced life, nothing bothers me. And the other part of that question, why are we dumb and have to learn things? Because the demiurge erases our memory when we die, which is why to fight against the demiurge properly, you have to gain eternal memory. Now, JJ Forth's phone asks, what do you think of egregores? What significance do you give them or consider them? I think egregores is a very important concept. The problem with it is it was an oral concept for years and years and years, and the only book that has aggregated information on it, there's only one. So people are always tell me more about egregores. Give me some literature to read about it. There's only one, because only one person has aggregated that information, and that's Mark Starvish. Good old Mark Starvish. with this book on egregors, which I think is a must read. I think everybody should read that book on egregors. The problem with the concept of egregors is, fundamentally, it's about the occult side of humans creating concepts. So as soon as too many people learn about the concept of egregor, this weird egregor, an egregor of egregors arises, and people have this tendency to just label everything as egregors after that. And it's like, bro, there are beings in the universe besides humans, you know. Like, there are angels, there are demons. The Christ exists. Oh, the egregor of Christianity. No. The Christ isn't an egregor. The church is an egregor. The Christ is like, you know, an energy. And there are gods in the world. Yeah, sure. There's an egregor of Norse spirituality or ancient or Egyptian spirituality. But those gods are ontological beings. There are beings that are existing, and they're not egregors. And that's my kind of problem, because as soon as people hear the concept, it possesses them. Like, really ironically, the thing about the concept of the egregor is as soon as you read it, people become obsessed with it. Which is why I actually recommend you should read Mark Stavish's book, because he describes this process really well. And it's like, yeah, read the book. You know, don't get possessed by the... Like before, when I was talking about systems where people just become obsessed with the guru or obsessed with the system, that's kind of like the egregor of Steinerism or Gnosticism, or neo-Gnosticism, I should say, or, you know, Jungianism. There are these egregors that just pop up, and it's like, oh, how do I become resistant to egregors? You want to know how to be immune to egregors? Make no contact with any humans ever. That's the 100% foolproof way to make sure that you're not being tempted or being controlled by an egregor. You know the other way? The other way is to make yourself hyper-resistant to egregors. How do you do that? Read as widely as you can. Because one way to unhook yourself from the egregor of a system is to read the works and literature of another system. Jill Roberts is my girlfriend. Just found this channel. I feel like such a level 1 green slime. We all start off on that level, baby. Enigma. Any advice for those on the path of self-initiation? No one-to-one teacher or lodge. Nowadays, there is so much stuff online that I'm like, do some online workshops, bro. Like, look up the Quarea course. Look up books that were said to be self-initiatory books. I always like mentioning Franz Barton's Initiation into Hermetics. But you know, like Mark Stavish, I just mentioned him. He has like online courses that you can do. I'm not saying like, you know, become a Mark Stavish, you know, get possessed by the Mark Stavish egregor. But like, you can like go online and, you know, do a couple of those courses. And they'll be good for you. They'll be good. They're good. They're solid. You know, and there are other people who do that. And it's not like one's better than the other and you should just do only Jason Miller's courses or something. But like, this is where your ingenium, your daimon, your intuition is key. Because some courses you'll look at and you'll be like, do I have to? But some courses, if it like strikes you like, maybe I'm not going to become a full-blown geomancer, but you know, this guy is offering a course on divination through geomancy. I'm not interested in geomancy, and I'm not interested in divination, but there's just something about this course. And then as you read it, or as you go into the course, it just happens that they mention a book. And that strikes you. And then it's like, oh, and you read that book, and it's of a specific author, and you look up that author and their life work, and they were a member of this society, and the founder of this society is this one person. And it takes you on this like string of events that there's no way you would have done any of that if you didn't do this course. It's like, right now, where we are, the problem that we have really is, how do you turn down the noise? How do you forge a path through the noise? How do you turn down the volume? Because there's so many people being like, Dolphin, Rainbow, Crystal, Dream, Goddess workshops, and you're just like, what the hell is this shit? Like, that's why we create categories. Why I created categories. Like, there's the religious, the spiritual, who, you know, love to do crystals and shamanic dream circles, and then there's the mystical, who are all about surrender, who have genuine experience, but no one chooses to be a mystic. However, the mystics are the ones that get the real shit. And then you look in the world and you realize there's this other group of people that are on the level of the mystic or are heading towards the mystic, and they're actually doing. They're doing something, and they're describing something where the human does something to initiate the process that a mystic goes through. A mystic doesn't do anything. Something reaches down from beyond the veil and just grabs them and jerks them. Whereas we got to jerk ourselves. So, starting path, if you haven't read Franz Barden's Initiation to Hermetics, it's good. Like, figuring out what literature is good is also a part of it. And that's why I like to recommend those authors who I think if there was a magic school or a university degree or something, I would put these teachers on a syllabus. Franz Barden, Eliphas Levi, Franz Hartmann, Dion Fortune. Are they outdated? Yes, but they are in this hinge point in history where they're coming into modernity, but they're not, you're not reading a Neoplatonic text, so you can read it, it's legible. And there's this, this is just where science is coming. This is just at the end of the age of rationalism and coming into modernity, and there's something special about what they're doing in that time, around that time, the Eliphas Levi to Dion Fortune time. There's something just special about those guys that I think that period should be studied. And those, Gurdjieff is in that period, Ouspensky's in that period, Jung is in that period, although, he lives longer and whatnot. It's important. Those things are important. Even some things from Theosophy. I think Blavatsky is important. I'm not a full Blavatsky simp. I know there's a lot of problems with Theosophy, but Theosophy, Blavatskyanism, let's not call it Theosophy, Blavatskyanism influenced so much of the Western occult tradition. It's insane that perhaps it is perhaps pertinent to still study her works. Let's do another from the YouTube comments section. QAE Ziz? How do you pronounce that? Kaziz? I think I need some more consonants. Anyway, Kaziz asks, are the people in our dreams a sort of astral body in their real selves? An astral body of their real selves? Or are people in my dreams have their own personalities and wit that I couldn't consciously come up with, and it matches how they are in real life? So are they projections or are they real ontological beings? Perhaps instead it's the idea of the person like a platonic form, the astral. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing about dreams. Different people are on different rungs of the ladder of being. And it's not just that there's mineral, vegetable, animal, and then there's a rung that's the rung of humans, and then above humans there's like daimon and angels and gods. The rung that is human has multiple sub-rungs. This is whole Gurdjieff's 7 types of man. Man 1, 2, and 3 do not experience the astral world. They experience either just, tactile things. They did scientific experiments where they'll have someone fall asleep. And it's like in a specific room, and then they'll do things like they'll make the room cold and have certain music playing, and then when they wake up, they're like, yeah, I was in a snowstorm. And it's like, that's a more tactile orientated person. A more emotional person, if they have dramas in their life, that will replay throughout their dreams. It's more of a tape that replays. Some people, I think people who are more intellectual just don't dream. They just have kind of not that they don't dream, but it's more abstract, and so it's not like a vision or something. It's not black. They forget it really easily. It's only people who are the 4th man and up that have real dreams. And maybe it's like one of those things. Maybe a person is at a point in their life where they're really stressed, or they're in a certain place, and some of their higher cylinders just happen to overclock. So people who are man 1, 2, and 3, maybe every now and then they will have an esoteric dream. Or maybe there's a type of person who they're just sensitive for some reason, but it's not everybody. Most people, their dreams are just either repetitions or projections of life. Very few people interact with the astral bodies of others. So for most people, it's projection. And for a few, sometimes it's different. And there's this elite aristocracy of people who are awake when they're asleep. EriGab99 asks, superpowers like in Le Marvel movies, but instead of being wholesome Chungus fighting till Timothy robbing a bank, little Timothy robbing a bank and everything staying the same way, use them seriously to change the world. None of the old paradigms, no secrecy. I'm talking a real change in history. One problem with that, I like to say, like, when I was talking about cities with someone, I was trying to, like, city faculty pill, magic pill one of my friends once, and he was a bit of a materialist, and he was like, yeah, but why has no one in history done that before? And I replied, because the last person who showed the world that they had magic powers got nailed to a cross. And there's something, even though I was being facetious, there's something about that. Like, what does Nietzsche say about the Superman? They hate the Superman. I know we watch movies and we've been conditioned to be like, oh my god, Spider-Man, and everybody loves Spider-Man, but really the truth is X-Men. The truth is X-Men. The truth is people don't like realizing they're inferior, and if you did have people with powers, it would be X-Men, but inverse, where Magneto was right all the time. Where having people who are human but are just ontologically on another rung and they're just better, they're just smarter, they're just better than you, and there's nothing you will ever be able to do to get even close to their level. People hate them. They hate that. They despise that. They despise the Superman. Deep down inside, humanity despises Superman. And so this is why there is more of a masters behind the scene. There's like a Sufi story of like three brothers that are given gifts from God. One of them is given an invisible cloak, one of them is given the like ability to heal others, and one is given the ability to like teleport. But it's like items that they're all given. And it's like they go around, you know, helping people and doing things for people, and then a king hears about them and like, oh, help heal my daughter, and he's so thankful that he like chains them up. And then it's like only like later through some circumstances are they able to become released and they're freed. And after they're freed, they continue to help like humanity, but they do it in complete secrecy. They just pretend that they never existed, and they always perpetually make themselves invisible. They don't take any money, they don't take any pleasure out of it, they just kind of do it as a duty completely invisibly. That's why that happens. Belzemu, hello. Upload videos again, please. I'm trying. I've got 3 videos recorded. I'm in the process of editing. I'll get to it, bro. I swear. This year's gonna be lit. Another guy. So the path of a human is to become inhuman? No, it's become overhuman. I mean, inhuman as in we go inwards, maybe? A human is what? A human is a seed. This world is a womb that gives birth to angels and demons. You must decide. You get to decide. And if you don't decide, you just get churned in the mill. Human again and again and again and again and again, or maybe you float into the animal or vegetable realm every now and then, but it is what it is, bruh. Martial esotericist. I came to spirituality to find ways to re-enchant the world in the face of this sea of nihilism. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I was so big into powers as well, because I was like, if you can astrally project, if, you know, what does that mean of all the ancient texts then? Like, that technically makes them all real. If you can actually project, what can you see in the astral? Are there other beings? Is that, you know, it does really re-enchant the world. So, Sir Willie Smalls, thank you for the $10 again. Can I have your take on my mystical experience? When I was 15, I was praying to the Christian God as I was raised. TLDR, I was going through a crisis, and it's not letting me see your full, oh no, and when all of us, part 2, okay. When all of a sudden, in a deep, calm and authoritative voice, the words, "everything will be okay," has spoken to me. I'm not or never have been schizo. What the fuck happened to me? So here's the thing. Human beings have multiple aspects to them. You have an intellect, you have emotion, you have a motor cylinder. Your intellect produces thought, your emotions produce feeling and sentiment. Your motor is how your body, your gangly body moves through the world. humans have other cylinders, other centers, higher centers, potentially. One of the problems with these higher centers, the higher genius, the perfect nature, the active intellect, is because we either don't use it or we're not connected to it, is in the rare moments where those centers do activate or do temporarily connect with us and do something into us, it's such an extraordinary extrapolate thing that we cannot assemble it into our concept of our own being, our embodied self. And so we are forced to extrapolate it as another being outside of ourselves. This is the whole holy guardian angel and higher self, or higher genius. Like, do we have a higher genius or a holy guardian angel? Are they two different things? If they are separate things, which one is above the other? Which one do we get to first? Like, basically, you have higher cylinders, higher faculties, and when they activate, if you're a normie, you'll push it away from yourself, and it will be an angel spoke to me, or I heard the voice of God, and it's like, plot twist, it was you. But that higher thing that is just so different, and that's one of the things that we're trying to connect to. And it's not just connect to through chance or trance or channeling or temporarily through psychedelics. We want to go through the slow, continuous method of building something up that will solidly connect us to that permanently. That's what we want, really. That's what we should be wanting. We want results that are permanent, not just an experience once off, right? I'm Catholic, but Nulhu says, I'm Catholic, but I fell into esotericism because of experience. I experienced what Tom Berg writes about, the magician arcana, by circumstances when I was 17. Nice. Very based. Very based. Okay, let me get back to some of these YouTube comments here. You've mentioned previously that poets convey internal experience in their work. Do you have any particular works that personally impacted you? I love a little bit of William Blake, but I like Khalil Gibran. Like, not gonna lie, he was this kind of Sufi-ish poet from the previous century. My family's really into Khalil Gibran, that's why. Like, he's one of the first ones that kind of impacted me. But, you know, I got to get on that grind and read some more. I bought, a collected works of Percy Shelley recently. I want to go through some of the more English ones. But, yeah, Khalil Gibran I really enjoyed. North Seeker Adventures asks, how has practicing the fourth way or any other occult system changed you? Can you grow new organs? Or no, that's a Gurdjieff reference. I know, maybe, but you've got to be a different kind of man than you are now. I don't think normal humans can grow more organs, but maybe a different type of human can. How has the practicing the fourth way changed me or any other occult system? I like to say Raja Yoga. I was never formally trained in Raja Yoga, but through years of learning meditation, wrongly, trying to meditate, being honest, and doing lots of practices, continuously reading, continuously going at it, by the time I read a Raja Yoga book, I was like, oh my God, this is what I do. It's like I accidentally taught myself Raja Yoga. So I say Raja Yoga definitely changed me. Made me, and this is hard because it's like, the boxer can say that they've gained boxing skill. You know, the mathematician can talk about how they can calculate. The spiritual person, what can they say? What tactile thing can they say? And it's not like I've attained mastery and, like, you know, I can shoot fireballs and blow up people's heads with my mind or something. I'm not an anime protagonist yet or anything. You know, so I can't really claim to anything great. But I've had changes in my life, changes internally, changes to who I am. Radical changes, and not just from my own perspective. It's interesting meeting old friends or people from the past and being like, oh my God, like, you know, and I mean, that's hard because it's also, you also just grow up naturally and people go to their old town and it's like, man, look at this dump, you know, that kind of thing. But at the very least, it has forever enriched my life. That's what I can say. August Sunny, for his final question on the YouTube comments, asks, what's the most esoteric... I know you asked this in the chat as well. Okay, cool. Lamau. Let me go to some of the Telegram questions now. Oh, let me go back to the chat. Let's see, where are people at? Dylan Zupik, howdy, welcome to the chat. Have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs cognitive function test? Is that the, what is it, INFPJ QQMP thing? I think I'm an IN. No. I think I'm an E. Am I in? No, I'm an IN definitely. I'm definitely not emotional. I'm introverted, intellect driven. What's the other things? Anyway, that stuff, people, that's also not solid because I think it changes over time as well. Craig Howard, 5D Lightworkers rise up. Adam Adamo, Belzemu. Why even be good then? Exactly. Be beyond good and evil. I mean, you know, what is good to the world? You gotta, we live in a society. So it's not about being good, it's about living in a cohesive society that's balanced. But what is a society? What is a civilization? A civilization is a set of myths. A civilization has a trajectory. It's going towards a certain place. A civilization of people without myths isn't a real kind of coherent thing. If you don't have your own myths, your own language, your own memes, you're not a real group of people. I'm sorry. But it's like the ethical thing is what is good is internally to that group is what kind of does good by them. But if you can live balance in that group and follow the initiatic path, hey, go for it. If not, the position we're in modern times, it's not about being beyond good and evil or being good in your society or doing politics. It's about, you know, the ancient Greeks had a term for it. I forget what it is, but it's, you are a Greek, you are a noble, you are you're from civilized society. You have to go out and live in a world, live in a group of barbarians. How do you hold yourself? You have to live with the barbarians. You have to do as they do. But on another level, you also hold true to your values. What's that balancing act? How do you live in a world of barbarians but still be Greek? And so that's the kind of thing. It's like, how do you live amongst these filthy, disgusting materialists, these rationalist skeptics, and still be an occultist? Still walk the path, still train every day internally. That's the ethos and the attitude that should arise in you. Even if you never think you're going to get anywhere, even if you think you're going to die before attainment, no, I'm going to fight anyway. That's the attitude you need. It's not about being good, it's about that. Sham, I had to get an exorcism. Damn. Self-dribbling basketball, howdy. Anyone watching the anime Orb on Earth movements? Ooh, no. Dido Apple in the chat. Howdy, Dido. Zeno Raziel. Damn, there's a lot of people in here. How would one remember their previous memories? As in their past lives? I'm going to make a video on that soon. Don't forget to subscribe and keep up. Why is Moloch in Bohemian Grove? So I heard something about Bohemian Grove. Apparently that was where Oppenheimer actually did the nuclear power tests, and then it became Bohemian Grove afterwards. Super freaking weird when you think about that. But Moloch isn't an owl. Moloch is also a bull, I'm pretty sure, or he has another form. When you look at Moloch as the owl demon from the Lesser Key of Solomon, that's actually Stolas. So the whole thing with the owl demon, not talking about Stolas. The owl in Bohemian Grove, what is the owl? It is the apex predator at nighttime. What is the symbol of America? The eagle. What is the eagle? It's the apex predator of nighttime. So Bohemian Grove is a symbol of the dark side of America. It's the shadow government. Shadow Wizard Money Gang, it's the shadow government. And so, who has the owl as their symbol? Minerva does. The ancient cult of Minerva and Athena has an owl as their symbol. Who else had an owl as a symbol? You know the Illuminati. You know when people are like, oh, Illuminati, it's the all-seeing eye. That's not a symbol of the Illuminati, go kill yourself. And it's like, oh no, but I've seen... I shouldn't have said that on YouTube. I hate it when people are like, oh, it's the eye, it's the Illuminati symbol. No, that's not a symbol of the Illuminati. The original Bavarian Illuminati used an owl. This eye symbol, comes from a conflation with Freemasonry. The Bavarian Illuminati and Freemasonry are two completely different secret societies. The Illuminati used Freemasonry as like a cock sleeve, they're like a sock puppet. Like they drew membership, like you know, they wanted influence, and it's like, well, we're going to draw from Freemasonry, we're going to use that as a hunting ground to get, you know, influential members. That's what we're going to do. And it's like, that's why the you know, the original, what is it, the Golden Rosicrucians, the Rosicrucian schools also did that. It's like, who are good upright standing people in their what is it, community? Well, usually they're a Freemason, and so you recruit from Freemason lodges because you know those guys have their shit together. You know those guys can pay a monthly fee and, like, you know, have their life in order, and you know they're social, and you also know other people who know them. It's like, this is in the, and the Rosicrucians and the Illuminati were enemies. The Order of the Golden Rosicrucians, the original, one of those older German Rosicrucian orders, there's pamphlets published of them that survive to this day that are like, fuck the Illuminati. Like, they hated the Bavarian Illuminati. They were enemies. So, I have this, like, major dislike now for pseudo-esoteric people who are like, oh, you know the thing about Freemasons, and I'm like, no, I know the thing about Freemasons, you fucking don't. Anyway, but you know, they watch fucking 5-hour videos on, yeah, but have you seen this sick 12-hour video of a guy, like, saying Freemasons are Satanists or worship Lucifer, and then they just do a slideshow, a PowerPoint of a bunch of celebrities, like, covering one eye up and being like, see, and it's like, you have no fucking idea of anything you just said. You are so fucking cringe. Anyway, Bohemian Grove, Illuminati, survival of the Bavarian Illuminati, apex predator of night, the shadow, it's the shadow of the American government, blah, 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 make of that what you will. Now, owls. Old Minerva. Okay, so people have mentioned that in the chat as well. Twin Peaks reference. You know, I watched the first episode of Twin Peaks recently, but I just don't have time to watch it all. Scares me to think we might all have been a huge soul farm for dark entities. I mean, that's the, you know, the Gnostic thing. You just gotta escape. But then how can you be sure that you can escape? Eternal memory, awakening consciousness. These are the fundamental things. Whether you are wanting to escape and be enlightened, whether you just want magical powers, or whether you want to be a Gnostic and escape the demiurge and the dark magicians that want to soul harvest you, awakening eternal memory. This whole thing, you know why Pythagoras was so smart? His legend is literally, Pythagoras was like a warrior in the Trojan Wars, and he lived so nobly that when he died, Hermes came to him after death and said, you are basically my son now. I will give you one gift. And Pythagoras asked, I never want to forget anything. Like, I want to have memories forever now. And so that's the thing that Hermes granted Pythagoras. And so when Pythagoras was born as Pythagoras, that was why he was seen as a mystic. He could, like, leave his body and, you know, achieve, you know, certain levels of metempsychosis. He could remember his past as that, like, Trojan warrior and things like that. That's why he was such a smart boy. Genius and talents are echoes of eternal memory. That's what you gotta get, boy. Thanks for the breakdown. No thanks, no problem, Tyler. Your connection sucks out here. Oh. What's your thoughts on Osho? Osho, Black Magician. And Black Magician he just kind of, you know, has he got good things to say? Yeah, because he draws from actual tradition. It's like, you know, he drew from Gurdjieff, he draws from here, he draws from there. It's like, he's gonna have good things to say if you just draw from tradition. The problem with Osho is then you look at the cult, and you look at the people, and you look at the fucked up shit that they did, and it's like, there's no way that any of that would have been done by anything other than a black magician or a Hasnamusin or whatever you want to call it. It's absolutely disgusting, the things that happened. And that is enough to just, like, be like, okay, cool, and leave, or at least use his works as a kickoff to go and study a real tradition that's actually going to take you to a place, not just shake all your worries away in movement yoga or whatever the bullshit they did. I'm glad I'm young, not a Jungian. Oh, is that the quote? Marshall, same problem I had with Nietzsche. Nietzsche says, I love Nietzsche, I hate Nietzscheans. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. OR in the chat. Howdy. Hello, I've been watching your old videos and you, of course. Your content is very generous, thank you. No problem. Thanks, bro. Richard, here's another one. Have you investigated Huna and its pragmatic process? Huna? H-U-N-A? No, I can't say I have, or if I have, it's only been very cursory, and I haven't gone balls deep into it. Definitely have been a fervent Gunonian for a few months now. So I don't like Gunon. I appreciate Gunon. I think he's wrong. And I'll clarify that. You have metaphysics, you have what I call the Gnostic visionary, and you have the ceremonial magician, and then you have the philosopher. Gunon was a pure metaphysician, and his metaphysical intuition is like off the chart. But he's not necessarily someone who claims to have attained initiation, nor is he someone who, I would say, had visions popping out of his butthole every now and then. Like, you know, he met Mikhail once. Cool story, bro. It's not like he was out in the astral all day. And he also didn't have ideas on magic that were very refined. So, as a philosopher and as a metaphysician, respect, but I don't see him as a kind of a visionary Gnostic or as someone whose takes on magic I would ever listen to. I don't think he's good at all. And there are other people who may not be as good metaphysicians as him, but they are a mixture of all three, and those people are more useful. That's why I promote Evola, despite the politics. Evola's take on magic and initiation, I think, and is just leagues above Gunon's. When they're aligned, it's like cool, but when they have differences, I go with Evola over Gunon any time of the week. Marshall, what about Christ? Would worshipping him count as investing libido into worshipping him? What do you mean by worship? Because this is the other thing. It's like, what praxis is being used? Are you just talking to yourself in the shower? Are you singing hymns? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Because you're not investing libido if you're just putting yourself into a passive repose and trying to draw the Christ into you. Because there's two things. There's like energy within you which you cultivate and move upwards, and then there's the Christ or the eagle or the spiraling energy that descends down into you. There's macrocosmic forces which you can draw into you, and there's the microcosmic forces within you which you can master, and maybe there's a path that's a mixture of the two. So a path that's purely about drawing and condensing that spiraling force of the eagle into you, I wouldn't... What would you call that? Would that even be worship at that point? Or is that just another form of initiation? Another guy, well, this sounds stupid. What I meant was, is it more like an entity rather than a person? It's more like a... and look, I'm not going to claim that I have any deep understanding of the Christ like, Steiner did, but it seems to be more of, something... of like some universal ontological principle which a part of it can manifest within you. It is eternal. I like one author once said, like, imagine the Christ as like an army of people. And as a group, it is the Christ. But one soldier of that army can come into you and embody himself in you. That's what it means to have Christ incarnate, or Christ consciousness embodied in the individual. My guiding philosophy is being a gamer, self-dribbling basketball based. The Gregors by Mark Starvish. Yes. So I'm just catching up with the chat. What do you think of Jean Dubois? So I haven't read him. From my understanding of him, he comes out of Frater Albertus. So Frater Albertus is the first true modern alchemist since people gave up on alchemy. I guess after Fulcanelli obtained the Philosopher's Stone, nobody else really started an alchemical school. Frater Albertus his idea of internal alchemy may be a bit weak, but respect because he restarted physical alchemy and founded a Paracelsus College of Alchemy in the modern world. Respect. So Jean Dubois comes after him and continues that project really. And I'm not sure, I've heard people talk about him and how he taught a public way, and he was really invested in that way. But there was these other methods of alchemy that he tried and actually had better results with a different method. And it was almost like chagrin that the public method he was giving to people wasn't working. And it's really interesting, but once again, I don't know much about that. It's just more like I heard through a guy. I heard from a guy, trust me, bro. Another guy told me. I wonder if gods are able to be killed, and if they are, would such egregor take their spot or something? Now, that's an interesting question, because you can have, the god Prometheus, but you can also have this Promethean archetype. Sorry, this Promethean egregor. The egregor of Prometheus can possess people, whereas the god or the archetype, the ontological being of Prometheus actually tries to help humanity actually. Egregor of science is definitely a strong one. Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of skeptical on egregors and thought forms. They seem like echoes or ripples in water. Yeah, sure. Half Buckeye. Also, before you suggested I get into ceremonial magic, to me, the last Q&A, my father bought me a copy of The Golden Door by Israel Regardie without ever telling him I was interested in the occult. What the fuck? Nice. Well, there you go. What do you think about the efficacy of group meditation? I think it's good. I think even if you're a bad meditator, here's why. When I first started meditating, I really got it. I didn't get it at all. But being led by a practitioner who I thought knew what they were doing, they didn't know exactly what they were doing, but they had a little something. And it's like, the way I describe it is when I meditated in a group, it was as if the leader filled themselves up and overflowed, and that what overflowed flowed into me. And I was able to meditate and have a kind of an experience of meditation. Whereas other people guiding it, not that teacher, it was like they barely filled themselves up, and I'm here struggling, bro. And so meditating, when you meditate, I would say it's actually super important and actually super, it really does give a kind of a good contrast. If you've only ever meditated by yourself or tried to meditate by yourself, you got to try it in a group. You have to try it with other people, converse with other people, because there's a high chance that you're deluding yourself as well. I got to do, yeah. And it's what do you mean by meditation? Also, what are you doing? What are you doing really? What are you trying to attain? Hi, Eric G. Howdy, Eric G. Your face group page brought me here. I was listening to your podcast on the Fourth Way. By the way, have you read The Case Against Reality? No, I haven't. I'll look it up. Another guy. Damn, my Lord of Mysteries question got ghosted. Oh shit, did it? No, I missed it, bro. Sorry, another guy. Robert Leon. I'm new to esotericism, but I've studied physics and nature. In nature, immortality of anything seems impossible. My biggest question is how God is immortal, and how you came to that conclusion. So, just to talk about the nature of God really quick, my process of understanding God, Robert, if you're still here, my process of understanding God, I've mentioned this in other live streams, I'll mention again really quickly. Symbolically, we're going to go through 3 sets of symbols. First symbol, imagine 2 circles, one above the other. The lower circle says the world, the top circle says God. In this case, God is ontologically separate from the world. So he's not in the world. It's like, an atheist saying, God doesn't exist. I would turn around to them and say, correct, God doesn't exist. God precedes existence. Blah. I don't actually like this system, because how do you contact God then? How do you interact with God? Well, the church claims to intercede with God on behalf of God, and so you just have to trust. It's just to trust me, bro. God is a tyrant in the sky, and I have to believe what the church says. I don't like that. Now there's the next symbol. Imagine, if you will, a single circle that says the world equals God. This is hippie bullshit. This is everyone's God, bro. Everyone's a master. We're just born, to learn lessons, bro. It's just all God. It's an egg learning about himself. There is no path. You just need to learn to be. What the fuck does that even mean? I hate that. And I understand it, though. I understand that there are some people who have been burnt by the tyrant of the throne, and so they need something more intimate. And so that actually calls to them, and that fulfills them and gives them meaning. That's trash to me. There's nothing in that for me. That's empty to me. Third symbol. Imagine a circle, and then within that circle, a smaller circle. The smaller circle says the world, and the larger circle says God. So God is transcendent to the universe, but he also permeates that inner circle. The inner circle is made out of God. So it's not like God is a being in the world. Like, oh, God is immortal. Angels, demons, lowercase g gods, are they permanent, or do they have to incarnate, or do they flow and flux, or do they move up and down the ladder of being? I think they do. But on that hierarchy, on that ladder, God isn't there, because God is the substance that permeates the entire ladder, the entire hierarchy. God is the substance that everything is made out of. I like this third diagram of like God being this abstract kind of circle on the outside and the inside circle being the world, because it lets me have my cake and eat it. Because God can be intimate within me. I can know I have God within me, and because I have God within me, I see God in nature and in other beings, and there are other beings, and there are a hierarchy of beings, and we're separate beings. But also, God is completely transcendental, and there is an aspect of God that is completely unknowable, and he's completely transcendental, and because we're all one substance, we're all one in God. I can completely have my cake and eat it. And I can even ram other esoteric systems in there and be like, yeah, there's an internal God which is intimate, there's an external God which is transcendental, and the one is masculine, the other one's feminine, and there's a secret marriage that takes place and the two fuse, and that's initiation. I can do things like that. I can work with that other part. And if you can do that, if you can connect to that thing that is extract and eternal and outside of temporality, then you have something that's permanent. You have something to stand on that's permanent. If you have something that's permanent, impermanent things can be organized around it. Your memory can be organized around it. A self can become immortal. A being can become immortal, but being immortal will still go through a process. You become a god, an angel, a demon, a daimon, whatever, maybe something else. Maybe we don't really have words to describe what comes after. Leviathans, Lovecraftian kind of deities in the ether, out into the dark abysses of the universe. There's some kind of other cosmic play that goes on. Who the fuck knows? Right at the moment, we're in the shit. This planet is a womb, and you, a human, are a seed, and the work is to grow and cultivate that seed until you can get into a different game. The game is to become a different ontological being. What's the difference between a caterpillar and a butterfly? They're the same creature, aren't they? Technically, they're the same creature. Show a caterpillar and a butterfly to a 3-year-old and say that they're two different, these are the same thing. They're going to look at that and be like, what? What is this? A caterpillar exists on a plane. The caterpillar has a different type of food even. Butterflies, eat nectar. They don't eat leaves. And they have a completely different mode of being and existence. A butterfly is free. In that same way, a human, well, it's not like a caterpillar, it's more like a chrysalis. There are elements that come into us and move out of us. But we can consciously decide to draw specific elements into us and crystallize them. And so that chrysalis, out of that chrysalis, when most people die, the energies, the psychic forces are just dispersed into the universe. Us, when we die, we want something to be crystallized there that can then perpetuate. Does that mean it's permanently immortal? It may mean you fuck up in a future life and you get dissolved. You get second deathed, bro, I'm sorry. Like, damn, maybe you can kill gods. But there's something that should be able to crystallize, and that should be able to go on to some further process. What happens after that, I don't know, but there's no point talking about step 72 if you can't pass step 14. And that's what I want to do. And I also don't want to be naive about it, so you need eternal memory. Hence why I'm autistic about this whole, like, awakening consciousness, awakening to eternal memory. Do you use reversals when you do the tarot? Nah. The tarot is, I don't know where reversals came from. And maybe there is a tradition about them, but the tarot is so rich and so profound that you don't need reversals, bro. It's like astrology people that just want to include multiple comments. Comets, you know, like how you have astrology with the planets, and then you have modern astrology with more planets, and then you have like little comets and planetoids, and oh, and don't forget your North Haven, and like, who gives a shit, bro? Who gives a shit? With just the 7 planets, with just the tarot cards face up, there's so much you can draw from that. JJ's fourth phone. Is it hard not to see all the esoteric symbolism in media and popular movies? I'm going to make a channel doing this, I think. Do it. Do it, bruh. The time is right. Is it hard not to see? Well, I mean, if you have the esoteric eyes, you just see it. Because I think it's there. I personally believe it's there whether you like it or not, and I don't mean they put it there to mock you or they put it there to wake you up. I mean, like, even people who have no occult knowledge, artists will sometimes receive echoes from their subconsciousness, or maybe even echoes from a higher place. Like their higher genius. Sometimes the higher genius will even speak to an evil artist, and that artist will accidentally create something good. I totally think that can happen. And so there's even... in this, the problem with this Kali Yuga, this modern day, isn't that there's good and evil in art. It's that the bad and the good are mixed together. The esoteric and the sacred and the profane, I should say, are mixed together. So it's more about what can you extract that's sacred from this, and what do you just leave behind? I've heard many stories about the trickster archetype. Robert Leon again. Loki, Hermes, Anansi, Satan. Who's Anansi? When talking to beings in the supernatural world, how do you know what words to trust from whom? Well, what do you want to know, bro? What do you want to know? Because this is the thing, you don't like... if it's just knowledge, you just keep it in suspension until it shows itself, or you get a litmus test in the physical. Like sometimes you'll get something, like, I don't know, you'll get from an angel a different way of doing a ritual, and then years later you'll read something, and it could even be like in a fairy tale, or it may actually be another magic book, and someone else either says something, or it's like they show something that's like almost exactly the same, or there's some wording, and it's like, oh my god, and it's like, oh, this is an actual thing. Like, you get a litmus test for it, like it works, it appears in the world before you. Like, what is the trickster telling you to do? Is it, you know, like, I don't know, shove crystals up your butt and you'll become enlightened? Like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, what knowledge are you getting from these beings? What are they actually telling you to do? Because if they're telling you to do weird stuff, just don't do it, bro. Don't wife swap. You don't, like, maybe there's some harmless things, like go to this place X and dig until you hit treasure. The worst that can happen is you go and dig and you find no treasure, I guess. But it's like, in the end, this is the thing, it's like, why would you be contacting spirits? You're contacting spirits for knowledge. Knowledge is either right or it's wrong. Whether it's right or wrong, you keep it in suspension until naturally it collects and magnetizes and becomes a part of the constellation of knowledge that within you that you know is true and objective, or that you accept that is true and objective. Arif Arikan, hello my man, I'm a Somalian refugee in Slovenia, oh my god. Much love from Slovenia. Hey, I have an IQ of 84. Does any esoteric practice has shown to successfully increase intelligence and understanding more complex things? This is interesting. So here's the thing. If I can, dare I say something about IQ on YouTube, I'll say it. I saw this thing ages ago about IQ, and it was like this grainy video from the 80s, and I think it got taken down because, you know, everyone's sensitive about race and IQ nowadays. But it was really interesting because this guy just gave a basic bitch lecture on IQ, but then someone from the audience who was a teacher asked a question, and they said, you say Africans have lower IQ, and that's why they don't have as great civilization as, say, like Asians or Europeans. But if they have such low IQ, how can any civilization whatsoever be perpetuated there? And in fact, and they basically mentioned that they were a teacher, and they have low IQ kids in their classes, and they said, here's the thing, when white kids have low IQ, they're like literally retarded. They can't even remember people's names properly, they don't interact with the kids properly. She said, with the black kids who have low IQ, sometimes you don't even know. They remember all of the faces, all of the names of all of their peers. They have, they can interact, they can actually be quite popular. And he went through this thing, and it was really interesting, because it was basically, the first thing that struck me was, oh, this is that whole argument against IQ. IQ measures something, but it doesn't measure everything. There is an X factor that white people don't have. So when their IQ goes low, they're just fucked. But like, people of the race of Yakub, Lemurians, have this X factor in excess. So even when they are low IQ, it actually doesn't matter, because they have this X factor. So the real question is like, how do you cultivate that? And I don't know, in the traditions, when you look at sacred traditions, how do they teach things? When you look at, a lot of those traditions are story driven, so they're going to be archetypal. So I would say absorb as many stories as you can. And also there's music to them as well. Study music theory and study kind of literature. That's because people want this app will increase my IQ. The apps never increase IQ. In fact, all they do is they give you these loose games that you play every day to increase IQ, and they do studies and show, oh look, it increases your gray matter temporarily, at least it does have some effect. And it's yeah, but every single study they've done of that, it's playing Tetris for a specific amount of hours in your day will increase your brain matter 60% instead of 20% that all of these fucking shitty IQ apps do. It's why do you even bother playing these apps? The two things that increase gray matter and IQ more than any other study or drug is playing games like Tetris for a specific an hour a day, because it's spatial kind of color matching, and learning a different language. So it's those two things increase IQ. And it's just do that. Study literature and study music are the two keys. Because I feel studying literature, you kind of get, and when I mean literature, I mean novels, world literature, world novels. Because a good literature isn't just a political kind of a guy inserting themselves into the story. Good literature is psychological in nature. Before psychology was a science, the psychologists were people who did literature. They reflect their society. And when you read literature, Gothic literature, Romance literature, you're embodying a perspective of a person who was bound in a state of being in another space-time, and it's giving you another perspective. So you're seeing the world from different perspectives, and that can awaken things in you. That's why, it's read Jorge Luis Borges, read, Mikhail Bulgakov, read The Red Lion, read literature. Also study music. There's something esoteric, because if you study music, you don't really need math, because by the time you start studying music theory deeply, music theory basically becomes a cognate for algebra. So it's those are the two things that I would say. I know you want an esoteric practice when you just call onto an angel and he gives you big brain stuff or something, or do this ritual and it'll totally increase your brain capacity. Those are the things I would say to do a study. If you do want to practice like that, I don't think there's practices like that, and I think people who say those practices are like that, if you do those practices, what will happen is you will create a chi deviation within yourself, and too much energy will flow into your brain, and you'll start getting white flashes, and you'll start having seizures if you continue them. You'll get headaches through the day, because I've done, I'm not going to talk about myself, but I've done something similar. There are no practices for the crown chakra. There are no practices for the third eye chakra. All of it is New Age cope. all energetic practices in the body are from the Manipura chakra, the yellow chakra, down. Either your solar plexus, your gut, or your perineum. Those are the places where you collect energy, you build up energy, and you compress energy. And from compressing the energy, like when you French press coffee and something squeezes up, by compressing the energy, it either pushes it into the system, the greater system, and it starts to circulate, or it pushes it into the central channel and rises up. And via rising up naturally, you don't make it go. Doing visualizations and pushing it into your head, you're gonna fuck yourself up. The only thing you should be doing is sinking energy. The only thing you should be consciously doing is sinking energy into those lower places and compressing it. That's what you do with your will. Guarding against the mind so you don't get distracted and entangled in memory and thought. Pushing energy down into yourself, stirring the cauldron. You know, Paracelsus believed the stomach was an alchemical furnace, like pushing energy into your alchemical laboratory until it compresses, and then naturally you feel things either going into your spine or into your system. Like, that's how you get a flow of energy that, you know, if you want something more in your life, you need to be in surplus. You want big muscles, yeah, you got to lift weights, but if you don't have, what do you call it, a caloric surplus, there's nothing for your body to rebuild. Like, maybe your muscles get stronger, but you don't build more muscles. That's why you need to eat more. You need to be in surplus. In nature, where do peacock feathers appear? They don't appear in the desert. They appear where there's a surplus. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly. How? By constantly eating, by constantly being in a surplus, then something new can grow. You want a higher being body? You want to become immortal? You need to put yourself in surplus. You need hydrogen 12. You need a bunch of hydrogens within your body, a bunch of 12 hydrogens within your body in surplus for something new to grow. You want more intelligence? You can train certain aspects around you. Play Tetris, learn a language, read world literature, study music theory. That will increase your intelligence and elaborate it. But you want pure, raw intelligence, you also need to be energetically in surplus. That's how I'm going to answer that question. Please don't ban me YouTube for talking about race IQ. It's not funny. I feel like an inferior being, not able to understand what others easily say. Yeah, sorry, bruh. I mean, my Spanish teacher once told me that good God was self-sustaining while evil... Ooh. I think I clocked out there for a second, but I'm back. Self-sustaining while evil was self-destructive. It's not a perfect definition, but it's something I often consider. Yeah, sure. If nation doesn't have its own memes, it's not a real nation. The nation itself is a meme. Of course, now you're thinking, Marshall. Hey, Alvino Allen, dropping a 20. Thanks, bro. I recently tried meditating again, and once I actually fell under, I heard a high bit pitched tone in my voice as a child call out. What the fuck could that have been? Kind of freaks me out. That's really interesting, yeah. So that's something... I'm trying to think, because, you know, I haven't had that experience, so I'm not going to, be like, this is what that is. There could be, you know, there's a certain, at the very least, when you meditate and you achieve a certain stillness, your subconscious loosens and things arise from it. So whether it's a past life thing or whether it's just, because that's the other thing. When I started meditating, one of the things I noticed I experienced the most was something psychological. It was like things that I had forgotten, I would just start to remember all the time. Also things that from childhood that I forgot just kept on coming back, like, whoa, I forgot about that. Like, you experience that heaps in meditation when you do it consistently. So it's like an opening of forgotten memory. So there could be something like that, maybe because it was the first time, it was just really intense. Or it could be that you're a person who's just more sensitive to that kind of auditory, I don't want to say auditory hallucination, but that auditory effect. Maybe you're sensitive to it and that's something that'll happen more often than not. Just keep meditating. If it doesn't happen again, it doesn't happen again. These things, a lot of people want to read a lot of meaning into these things. A lot of them, those things, it's not that they don't have meaning, it's just that they're litmus tests that you're doing it right. sorry, it does, so it doesn't have meaning that it's like something profound and it's like, yes, your inner child was calling to you. It's not that that's the case at all. It's just that you did the meditation correctly and something happened. Now, don't be entangled in that and freaked out by it. Like, if you become entangled, oh, it's my inner child, I need to listen to what he's saying. You become entangled and you ruin the meditation. Or it's like, oh, what the fuck is that? And you become shocked and aversion. You lose the meditation. It means you're doing something correct. Just let it flow and let other things come, more things proceed. Thank you for the $20. I hope that helped. Now, let's see some of the Telegram questions. From a name I can't pronounce. Oh no, wait, I think it's Kuller Schizo. He's got some weird font. Has asked, after doing sex magic, is it normal to be harassed in the astral? Depends what kind of sex magic you're doing, bro. R asks, Gurdjieff moon magic and supposed moon magic in relation to population control. Too schizo? Wait, what? What are you asking, R? Gurdjieff moon magic and supposed moon magic in relation to population control? I don't know what you mean, R. I don't know what you mean. Vernon asks, this is a retarded question, but can you give your thoughts on Seven Swords and the Five of Pentacles? So I'm pretty sure the Seven of Swords is the sneaky sneakerson who's sneaking away from tents with a bunch of swords, and the Five of Pentacles is like two peasants walking in the snow, and the Five of Pentacles is like a kind of a church. What does he call it? Stained window in the background, and it's like there. It's interesting because the Five of Pentacles is like you're outside of the temple. You're in poverty because you're outside of the temple. But and then the Seven of Swords is usually like deception, like someone is stealing from you. For me, it's like, what's your take on them? Well, what did you ask? Like in an initiatic sense, I would say it's like, and I mean, what's the Seven of Swords? Are you the guy stealing swords from the Lucifer, like the alchemists who steal fire from the Lucifer to work their gold? Or is that the Lucifer stealing swords from you? Are you asleep and you should be more aware? It's like, with the Five of Pentacles, what is that initiatically? I mean, that one's more plain initiatically. It's just like, you're in a state of internal poverty, bro. You're not in the temple. You need to be initiated into the temple. You need to go inwards more, or else you're just going to be outside in the cold with all the other filthy materialists. Woodwoes asked, how can I have sex with astral entities? Woodwoes being one of the admins for my Telegram chat. Thank you, Woodwoes, for the question. How to have sex with astral entities? Bro, just... you know how to have sex with astral entities. Don't play with me. Now, who else has questioned Vernon? Are people asking, is studying N Shell in the chat asks, is studying Ouspensky's notes the best way to learn the ray of creation, or should I visit an alleged fourth way group and shit test their hierarchy with technical hydrogen queries? I mean, definitely do that. Definitely shit test Gurdjieff groups, but Ouspensky notes is solid for studying the ray of creation, for reals. I think definitely reading what Ouspensky says about the ray of creation and then trying to read those chapters in Beelzebub and flicking between them and contemplating them and pondering them a lot, that'll yield results. Dory Apple asks, how do you reconsider Steiner's explanation of the Lucifer or Ahriman? I think I kind of answered that with one of Tyler's questions. Mindful Self-Indulgence in the Telegram chat says, could you explain your path to the esoteric? I think I mentioned that as well before. What were circumstances that led you to your work? Yeah, so that was my uni days leading me. I was studying anthropology in uni, and I like dropped out of uni to just get a crappy trade job and just study esotericism full time. One more question. Sign to speak. Oh yeah, and then, okay, so this is Tyler. Tyler asked that in the comments. And I've got a big one here from Chris. From Telegram TG asked, Buddha spoke of shunyata, the void, as the ultimate realization, a transcendence of anatta, non-self, a dissolution of the ego. Yet in modern society, the experience of derealization is framed as pathology, disconnection from reality. Could it be that the modern fear of derealization reflects a misunderstanding of the void, as described by Buddha and other mystical traditions? The void is not a mere nothingness, but a creative ground of being, a potentially... And so you're going off to say that the void isn't just void, it's not nihilistic, bro. And I agree with you. So your real question So what's going on in modern society? Yeah, I completely agree with you. In the same way that Christians are autistically dogmatic about the nature of Christ, Buddhists are autistically obsessed with Buddhism not being eternalistic. And this problem is confounded by Western scholars who study Buddhism and translate the texts, who have been either burnt by Christianity or they're just atheistic and naturally nihilistic anyway, being like, yes, good, Buddha denied the Atman, yes. It's like, this is a problem. I'm personally team being. Non-being is true being, but you can't conceptualize it, so you just call it non-being. The whole of Buddhism is a via negativa. You can't describe God, so you just negate except for them, they just negate reality. They negate everything, but there is something at the end. Because it's like, look, Buddhists don't believe in souls. Bullshit. They believe in reincarnation. If they believe in reincarnation, what's the thing that reincarnates? Oh, they don't believe in souls, so they don't believe individuals exist, that it's all an illusion? Why am I being compassionate? What's the point of compassion if other beings don't exist? Who am I being compassionate to? What is that even? If no other beings exist, then how can karma be real? What is karmic threads if there's no causality? The whole thing falls to pieces. And it's like, I get it. There are different levels of Buddhism, and at the top they have this blah, 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 abstract thing. Here's my thing. And you've got to kind of understand some like proper Buddhist terminology for this, but in Buddhism, the most important thing is what? The skandhas. And once again, form, perception, emotion, the feeling of it, and the cognition of it itself. All of this is fabrication. And what are you doing in Buddhism? In Buddhism, the Buddha says, you turn away from this. I get it. If you're turning away from the skandhas, what's the thing doing the turning away? If there's no metacognition, how do you know that the skandhas are even real, or what the skandhas are, or what skandha comes first, and that there are gaps between them? Buddhists will admit that there are some masters who can just see from a bird's eye view into the skandha. Well, what's the thing seeing? What is it? They don't want to label it, because any labeling will fall into eternalism, and that's that thing. If you read Buddhist debates, the Buddhists are just so, like, oh, you're an eternalist, so you worship demons. Like, they fucking, in the same way that other Christian sects call each other heretics, bro, you haven't read, like, you haven't read proper religious slander until you've read, like, Buddhist debate literature. They fucking hammer each other. So if you're in the field, the tradition of Buddhism, and you, even for a moment, step into something that could be construed as an eternalism, the other debaters just they pile on you, bro. So there's this autistic, like, no, but it's not eternalism, and that becomes a problem. In the same way that they try to make the Christ unique, and then it just becomes something so abstract you can't even connect to it, there's this problem is in Buddhism. In Buddhism, you know what? The void is full. The void is substance. It's like, there is a path, there is something. Soul exists. You do have spirit. What is the thing that is turning away from the skandhas? And once you turn away from the skandhas and you experience reality, you then bring that into the skandhas. You then bring reality in, and you are able to reform it. You're able to hack existence. That's the whole point. It's not just self-realization, it's self-actualization. That's the other half. And this is my problem with modern spirituality and pseudo-spirituality. These people who are like manifestation this and Joe Dispenza that, you're not doing anything. You're just changing that which is fabricated. And like, I get Carl Jung was cool, but a lot of modern Jungianism and psychotherapy and psychologizing spirituality, you're just changing the thing that's fabricated. You're just changing the skandhas and changing things. You're not actually doing anything real. The thing that can turn away, the thing that's real, needs to identify with itself. The eye needs to be able to see itself. The film projector projecting light, the light needs to bend back onto itself and study itself. this thing needs to happen. Self-realization needs to happen, and then self-actualization needs to happen. There's a further process, and this coming to of so. And like, you know, the best way to describe that is like in Taoism, The Secret of the Golden Flower, where you see this golden embryo being born into a human, and at first it's like a little guy inside the body, and then it grows, and then it's like a bigger guy. And it's not like there's this thing that you make, because if you make it, it's not immortal. There's something, dare I say, that's eternal, that comes into you, and these different stages of it as a child or a little guy, and then it's a bigger guy, and then it's on your head. That's stages of this one thing manifesting into you. It's different levels of manifestation, of it coming into you. And that's what's real. That's the ground that then grounds everything, that then you can stand on and perpetuate through existences. This is what's important. So a lot of people go too hard with Buddhism into the nihilism, and it's true. They don't learn equanimity, they just learn disassociation. That's the problem with modern Buddhism, with Western Buddhism. And my critique of Western Buddhism is they should never have done that. You should mix it with the Western stuff. Like, it needs to be as objective as possible, and then your subjective atheistic, nihilistic desires go into it anyway. No, you know what you should do? You should totally mix Buddhism with Neoplatonism, Hermetics, and Gnosticism. 100%. Not necessarily, maybe mystical Christianity, sure. I'm sure Meister Eckhart and Buddhism have a lot to say to each other. You should mix those together, and through contrast, through synthesis, you'll achieve Hermetic Buddhism. And until you get Hermetic Buddhism, none of this Western Buddhism bullshit will ever create an enlightened Westerner. There are no Western Buddhas, and they will never come from Western Buddhism. Only Hermetic Buddhism will create a Western Buddha. When Buddhism flourished in its country, it was Buddhism. When it moved to China, it became Chan Buddhism, and it took on a Chinese tint. It took on traditions. It absorbed parts of Taoism. When Buddhism went to Japan, it became Zen Buddhism. It became very Japanese. When it went into, like, you know, other parts of Southeast Asia, you get the forest tradition, the Theravada, it absorbed parts of that continent. When it comes into the West, we're like, no, we mustn't colonize Buddhism, we must keep it pure. And you get this dry, stale, and lacking in informed, Western Buddhists who are just university lecturers who tell you, oh, don't even bother studying the jhanas. What the fuck would you know? It's like, no. If Buddhism is going to come to the West, it needs to be absorbed and to permeate Western culture. Plato needs to just put his fist right up into Buddhism, and Buddhism and Hermeticism just need to, like, kiss. Just like, we need to get the dolls, and we need to do things to them, and they need to become one. It needs to become one, bro. I'm very passionate about that, I'm sorry. Anyway, let's get back to the chat. Love these rants. Thank you, Adamu, martial esotericist. Oh, we're talking about Illuminati still. See, everyone's like spoken heaps, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've got to catch up. Well, I had that Illuminati phase when I was 13. I believed in it wholeheartedly, but I thought Judgment Day was coming. Yeah, I know what you feel, bro. Loved your video on Borges. You should make another one. I actually bought another one of his books recently, so maybe. I thought they were some trader guild that has evolved to a super state. That's the Freemason thing. Nah, not really. Judgment Day. What do you think of it? Ooh, I need a new name now. What do you think of Jason Reza Giorgiani? So I am an OG when it comes to Jason Reza Giorgiani. I was following Giorgiani when he was doing talks with Jeffrey Mishlove. And then he had his falling out, and he started Prometheism. Well, actually, I'm mixing things together here. But I have systematically watched almost every single appearance and lecture and interview he's ever done. Because I got in the early days where he had like 10 talks with Mishlove, and then he did it like 80 or 50 or something ridiculous. And because they came out sequentially, I watched them as they came out. And so then as he's progressed and gone to other places, and on Byte, he's had some with Uber Boyo, BTR, I've literally watched all of them. And I respect him for one thing and and for multiple things. Keep that in mind for what I'm going to say later. I respect him. The main thing, spectral revolution is the most necessary thing in the entire goddamn world. Oh my god. You have no idea how annoying it is to talk to people and then for them to just be like, yeah, but science says, and it's like, you're freaking lame. And he just has so good, even though, you know, he's a little bit too generalist. It's good that he's a generalist. He's a little bit too generalist sometimes. I would love if him to actually get into a tradition. Like, I think if Giorgiani studied a little bit of Taoist alchemy, studied a little bit of Buddhist Mahamudra, studied some more Gurdjieff, some more Fourth Way, I think he could really give to the world more than even more than what he's given, because he's given a really cool philosophy, but he hasn't given a system. And he's even said in previous live streams, like, he doesn't have a meditation or magic practice. He sees himself as like an Oppenheimer, and that's a red flag to me, because if you don't have a practice, it's like, what do you really know? Sure, maybe he's got some past life stuff going. Sure, maybe he has a fucking Giga Chad philosophical, metaphysical intuition. But there are just always going to be some things that, you know, the guy who's never flown on it's qualia, the problem of qualia. The guy who's never flown on a plane he can describe flying in so many ways, but until he's done it, he can't talk about it, kind of thing. There's some aspect of it that he's always going to miss. Qualia, the idea of qualia. When it comes to occultism, this is so important. And who doesn't, you know, I don't know, maybe he's keeping it on a low key. I assume he said certain things before that make me wonder if he doesn't have his own practice of like remote viewing that he does every now and then. And he clearly has some weird affinity. And when I say Satan, he really just needs to just rebrand. It's Gnostic Luciferian, bro. He's a Gnostic Luciferian. He wants to really be an edgy edgelord and just call himself a Satanist. But as the history of Satanism goes, his Satanism just doesn't fit with what Satanists have called themselves. It's like, just call yourself a Gnostic Luciferian, bro. Just do it, bro. Come on. But yeah, I get really excited about him, and so you can understand why I also get ultra disappointed. Because sometimes he says things, and he'll go on this long tirade, and I'll be like, yes, 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 and then he'll conclude it, and where he lands, I'm like, what? How did you get to that point? And then other times it's the opposite. I'm disagreeing with everything he says. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? No. But then he'll wrap it up and be like, and so this is my conclusion, and I'm like, that conclusion is my conclusion. That I think that exact thing. How did you get there from that? What? So I have this like love-hate relationship with Giorgiani, because I'm on one level, I see him as like, I have these critiques of him, but I don't even know if they're proper critiques, because he's very intelligent, and it's like, I don't see myself as intelligent enough to know if there's a problem with what he's saying or if I'm just miscalculating. You know what I mean? So I've never gone full whole hog into Prometheism or being a Giorgiani follower, but I'm a fan. For sure. Politics aside. And let me just end that there. Venus as a Boy says, what's the end goal of all this? I think I kind of mentioned that before, maybe. The end goal of this is ontological immortality, so we can all become anime protagonists and blow up people's heads with our laser vision, / isekai ourselves into a new world. Hyperborea. We're gonna all become immortal and isekai ourselves into Hyperborea by attaining eternal memory. We're all gonna make it, bro. We're all gonna make it, bro. As a boy, do you know the channel Meme Analysis? If so, thoughts on him? I like Meme Analysis. He's aight. I have problems with Crowley, so whenever he's like, and Crowley, I'm like, cringe. But, you know, he's a good Jungian, and he's got some good hot takes. I like him. But he doesn't seem to publish much nowadays. Where is he? Because I'm not a massive follower, but, you know, I watched his videos back in the day when he was, you know, posting consistently, and now he only does a post here and there. Here and there every now and then, so I'm like, yeah, he's alright, he's cool. No wrong, think aloud. Oh, like the Tengrist belief there are gods. They're in the eternal blue sky. Robert Leon, your explanation of God reminds me of the defense of hesychasm. When it was controversial initially. That's really interesting. I know hesychasm as in like the style of prayer the Orthodox monks go through. That's oh god, one day I'll read the Philokalia, or maybe I won't. But yeah, I haven't heard the I haven't seen that debate or heard the defense. That's really interesting. Maybe I'll look that up. Hi, what's the topic? Says Giulio Acula. It's general question and answer time. That's what the topic is. JJ Fourth Phone, have you awakened eternal memory? Are you following a specific method to achieve that or what? So this is the other thing. I fucking hate people who claim personalities of past lives. I find that intensely distasteful. And so did Steiner, which is why Steiner never mentioned it. And I think Gurdjieff had a intuition of this. So Gurdjieff just kind of, he said, yeah, I know my past lives, and just kind of nodded and kind of kept moving on. And it's like, I've had this experience as well, where someone gives good teachings and then they're like, by the way, I'm Abraham Lincoln. And it never ends well. It never ends well, because the best way to describe it is, if you read Red Line, there's that one chapter in France where he goes and meets, like, there's this kind of group that's centered around a spiritualist channeler, and they're all completely insane. And that chapter is so hilariously funny, because that chapter is like every single Rosicrucian theosophical school you'll ever meet. It's like, you'll go to, like, theosophical societies, and there'll be people who are like, I'm channeling Saint Germain, and then you go to Rosicrucian schools and be like, I'm a reincarnation of Saint John. And it's like these personalities gain followers, and then another person says they're Saint John, and then you get like a war because, no, I'm Saint John. And then it's like one of those things. It's like, oh, you're Alexander the Great? Name every battle he was in. It's like, people will take the personality, but then they're not even good at anything else. Like, why are you even taking this personality? Why are you even taking this up? It's like, some great men are so great, and some people are so poor, that it's like, if you really were Alexander the Great, if you were that man, you as you are now are pathetic. You're a loser from like a small town. And you're Alexander the Great. If you really were Alexander the Great, you would feel so much shame at your current situation, at where you've ended up. You would tell no one. So it's like, when people say like, so I get very, I don't want to talk about it kind of thing. I'll just say I've had experiences of past lives, flashes. But I don't claim at all to be anywhere near the level of what I want to achieve. I just have a trajectory. Are you following a specific method? Technically, yes. But yes. As I said before, I don't want to lock anyone into something. I don't want to lock them into, I know, Richard Ruarkism. As I've said before, it's like, I take to heart those words of William Blake. I needed to create my own system or risk being enslaved by another. There are certain principles that I've definitely gained from study and praxis that I wish to share. Because that's the other thing, is like, why am I, what's the importance of even teaching? Like, I started a Beelzebub's Tales reading group on Meetup back in the day and met some people. And then another time I started doing lectures at my local Theosophical Society, and I gave personal, like, kind of lectures and all of these things, and I've done a bunch of stuff, and I've been in some groups here, and I met a Golden Dawn group there, and it's like, cool. I think when I look at online at what you can get, there's some cool stuff that I've found. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of, and it's not bullshit, it's like, there's a lot of crap. There's a lot of dolphin dreaming, Isis channeling, crystal butt, star seed, new age schlop. And it's like, there's so much noise, bro. Like, type Rosicrucianism into Amazon, and you know what you get? The first, like, 10 books are ChatGPT, you know, Google image searched cover, like, image just slapped onto a cover, like 56-page book, and it's like not even a Rosicrucian book, bro. It's like, what the F even is this? Where are the manifestos? Where are the scholars? Where are the actual practitioners, like the journals of the practitioners? Like, where is this? So I like to bring attention to things that are real, and I'm just kind of pissing into a river, because hopefully the principles that I've found that have helped me, I hope that they help other people, because it's like, I know what it was like. I was in this place where I'm like, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty for anything. I'll go to a Reiki workshop. I'll go to a gay Kundalini yoga class. Give me anything, please. And so I'm like, someone like me out there exists. I may not have compassion for the entirety of humanity, but it's like, I have compassion for the hypothetical person that was like me. So I'm going to piss into a river and put my opinion out there, and hopefully it helps at least one dude. That's my take. Spring Heel Mac, howdy. Back to Eternal Memory. Something tells me he's working on it, and it's a small club. Yeah. Oh yeah. Evola passes the vibe check better than Gunan, to be honest. Hell yeah. Mercy Eliada mentioned, oh shit, my battery is on 20%. Looks like I'm gonna die soon, boys. So if the stream ends and I didn't get to your questions, I'm sorry. Anything you want to say about synchronicities? No. Interesting in increased intelligence, though. Intelligence has many forms. Academics law. I get smart, which is helpful review. Holy. Redacted. It's what you want to abuse. Akash. Adamu. Wow, chi deviation is something I didn't think I'd hear outside of the Wuxi. Hey, no, that's a real thing in like Taoist Nigong, my bro. It's a real thing. And I mention that because I don't want to use the term Kundalini sickness because that's also been co-opted by the New Age and it's cringe. So chi deviation is the more appropriate term. Thoughts on Zazen? Yeah, it's good. You dropped some hemisync files in your TG, but my other esoteric group was warning that some hemisync files are corrupted and might install a demon in your mind. I don't know about that. That just sounds cringe. But it's one of those things I've thought about myself. Like, where does hemisync come from? The CIA. Originally, they developed the technique, so what's to say that what they sent out into the world doesn't put demons in you? So it's always been a little bit sus, but I trust Monroe. Most important thing in Buddhism is to gaslight white girls. Damn straight, baby. Hello, do you have any book to recommend dream analysis? No, I don't. Is Tao the Tetragrammaton? No. What do you think about Thelema? Crowley makes me cringe. I'm going to be honest. The thing about Crowley is I appreciate Crowley because I look at him and I'm like, if this is the first thing I ever read, I would be getting, in the first 10 minutes, I would be on my knees getting my slob on to Crowley. But I read Dion Fortune. I read Franz Hartmann. I read Eliphas Levi. I had read Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Barden 2 times before I read any Crowley. So by the time I got to Crowley, I was like, yeah, and? So I just don't think much of Crowley via proxy. It's not that I'm necessarily a hater, but I'm just like, cool. I'm not really Somalian, sorry, that was a joke. I'm from Turkey. You lied to us. Oh my god. What you said about how Buddhism needs to be localized. Turks tried this and failed for 300 years because they refused to localize. Exactly. I think meme analysis just has no need for YouTube anymore. I think he has taught enough about his worldview, and now it's up to his disciples to apply his teachings. Sure. Phrased it wrong. Buddhism didn't stick with the Turks because those Buddhists refused to localize. Yes, and that's what I see in Buddhism. Those teachers do it wrong. The lamas that come over are like, we don't need to read Western philosophy. We don't need to do this. Maybe we'll read some science. We'll read some psychology to help the Western mind understand our Buddhist teachings. And it's like, you fucking cunts. You have no fucking idea. Read Husserl, read Heidegger, read Wittgenstein, read Alfred North Whitehead process philosophy, read Henri Bergson. They will kick your shit. You Buddhist sit. No, I'm sorry. I'm like, this is too hateful for YouTube. I'm not hating on I'm sorry. This is, yeah, there's, I'm not hating on Buddhism. A lot of Eastern lamas that come to the West have wrong opinions just about everything. They're not here to make enlightened masters. The lamas coming to the West don't, it's compassion. They want to create sanghas. That's all they want. They don't care about a Western Buddha. I know that's a bit black pilling for people in the Buddhist community. That's a fucking red pill. You want the esoteric red pill against like the Buddhist community? Eastern lamas that come to the West don't care about making a Western Buddha. They want to make sanghas and that's it. They don't care. They don't care. What are some esoteric groups that beginners could join for info and guidance, accountability? Is it worth finding a group in real life? Yes, it is worth finding in a group. It's hard because it's like a lot of the groups inevitably end up simping for a central, what would you call it, personality. You know, Steiner groups will simp for Steiner, Jung will simp for Jung, Samael groups will simp for Samael on Vior. And it's like, look, if you have no development, whatever's closest, just do it. Because a box isn't a box if you're small enough. A box is a world and a tool that you can use to grow yourself. It only begins to constrict you once you reach a certain size. So what I would say is get in there, you know, take the oaths, be a cool dude, and use what you find, but continue to read generally. Continue, always have your own private praxis. And because in the end, here's the thing, like, what does spirituality mean really? It's you having a relationship with your spirit. No one can teach you that. The term spiritual teacher is a misnomer. No, there's no one can teach you to do the most private thing in the world, which is have a relationship with your own spirit. That doesn't exist. So it's like, there are people who will teach something, a method, and once you've learned the method, you can continue to meet them as a peer or a friend, but you're no longer their student. If you're perpetually a student in a school, like 20 years in, and your teacher is still like, oh yeah, I've got things to teach you. You know, you know the doctrine quite well, but still not as good as me. Leave. Just leave. And any good ones, it depends what you want. If you want Western magic, go Golden Dawn, try finding Franz Barden's groups, try starting a group. Try Fourth Way, do anything, bro. Hypothetical person. Oh, by the way, I was Richard Rourke in a past life. I was Richard's mom in a past life. It's funny you say that because sometimes the gateway tapes I listen to make me feel dark. Annette. I'm opening myself, okay, that's interesting. Is Zoroastrianism more interesting than Buddhism in your opinion? Yeah, but there's not much of it left, that's the problem. It's a little spooky, but it would be fun without the spooky. But the spooky makes it more fun. JJ says, what praxis would you suggest to start on your own? I'm a fan of Raja Yoga. Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga. Well, it depends. What do you want to do? Internal method? Internal method, I'm a fan of Raja Yoga, for real. But external method, that's a little bit longer. I want to do a video on him, but Freda Acker just has some based books. It's so good. He's such a good, one occultist I really respect. Native German speaker, does his own stuff. He's a Giga Chad. He's a Giga Chad of the modern occult community. Read his book Ingenium and maybe try the practices there. Or at least use that as a kickoff to maybe work with planetary intelligences or something. Because that's the thing about the West, there's kind of no beginner point. You just launch yourself into, you dive in, you read a bunch of stuff, go, oh, and then you keep going until something works, and you take a bit from here, you take a bit from there, and then eventually over time something happens and you realize you're just in this intermediate plateau with a bunch of other people who are either forward or behind you or just a couple of steps. And that's how you begin to work. You begin to have peers that you then work with. That's how it naturally progresses. Never tried the Great Wave tapes. Above all else, people on there, I will say that the more I listen to the tapes, the better I feel. Okay. Cool. I'm having trouble finding a spiritual practice. Progress. Okay, I'm gonna go see if there's any other Telegram messages. How to increase academic intelligence. Akash Sindhu in the Telegram chat. I want an academic comeback this year. Oof. Academic intelligence, that's hard. I think I mentioned before, it's like learn a language, play Tetris, study music theory, and read world literature, but academic, that's hard. That's more like the Ars Notoria. Look up the Ars Notoria and start to try and train with that. Or, you know what? The Art of Memory. For reals, look up the art of memory. I think that's all from Telegram, that's all from YouTube comment section, and I think everyone in the chat, I've finally made it to the end of the chat. How does one find a group? Look on Meetup. So here's the thing, look on Meetup for, I don't know, meditation groups, maybe sometimes Golden Dawn groups, sometimes theosophy groups. There are places that are magnets. Look, Freemasonries can be seen as cringe, but also when you get into Freemasonry, after a certain period of time, someone will be like, hey, come to my lodge, and come to this lodge, or you ask about Rosicrucianism, and eventually people will start to open certain doors to you. Same with, in Theosophy, it's not the same with Theosophy, but the Theosophical Society is usually a magnet that attracts a bunch of people. And so go to some lectures, meet here and there, and then eventually you'll know that some guy from an occult school is coming to give a talk, and okay, maybe connects there. Maybe connect online to some groups. Some groups do generally do some good stuff online. And then it's like this thing, like, I connected with a fourth way group in my town, but it wasn't advertised, it wasn't anywhere. So how did I get to it? I started a Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson reading group on Meetup. And people came and we just started reading. And then on one of the lessons, a guy came from the Gurdjieff group, from the fourth way group. And he was like, oh, hey, do you want to come to the fourth way group? And I was like, yeah, sure. So it was kind of like, almost like the guy saw my Meetup and then sent one of his students to, I guess, like, you know, poach from the competition, you know, kind of thing. Like, why? It's hard because, anyway, I should end that story. That place, that fourth way group wasn't that good. And that was where I built up my litmus test for fourth way groups, where I'm just like, yo, ask the teacher what's the difference between self-observation and self-remembering, and if he can't tell you, then just ditch. Like, that's how you tell as a litmus test, for reals. But yeah, it's like, other places, if you just start something in your area, if you just go, you know what, Golden Dawn self-initiation, put it up on like Facebook in your area and just like put in money for advertisements and see if it makes a splash. See if anyone's interested. And sometimes it's not. That's why I say, like, start with a book club first, like, I don't know, Golden Dawn reading group or something. And you'll be surprised at how many people are there that are just disconnected. And maybe there is a group. And then they're like, who's this guy? And then you get invited along, or they tell you to stop, and then you go, oh, hey. And then because you know that they exist, you then knock on their door, And that's the problem with a lot of Rosicrucian groups. Some, they have contacts on their websites, and you email them, no response. You call their phone, and it's like no one picks up, and then you just call, and you call, and then eventually someone picks up, and you're like, hey, and they're like, oh, I got your email, but yeah, I didn't follow up, and then finally you get your foot in the door. It's like, this is the process. A part of this is the effort of the path. That's basically, in modern days, that's what you got to do. You just got to kind of YOLO, make your own thing, and that kind of gets you noticed almost. So people will come out of the woodworks, and you can kind of, hopefully as peers and all holding hands with teamwork, you create something. Or a real group that exists but that wasn't present will make its appearance known. And you can kind of absorb yourself into it. Are there any good esoteric resources on the moon? I don't know. Pseudonym. Would you say that college courses on religion and philosophy are worth it for a beginner who doesn't know much about religious? This is entirely dependent on who the lecturer is and what the curriculum is. Back in the day, it used to be bad, but it's getting better and better, and there's just more and more academic stuff on Hermetics and Western esotericism popping off. Like, I mean, the ultimate thing would be to go to freaking, what is it? The humanities section of the University of Amsterdam is the only place in the entire world that actually offers a degree in Hermetics. So you can literally get a degree in Hermetics there, and I would, if I had the cash and the time to learn Dutch, I would do that, for real. If I say "woo-loo-loo-loo" 3 times, will you your shirt mat change to blue? Yes, but you got to donate $100 first for that to happen. How did you start your journey? What started it and propel? I think I mentioned this earlier in the live stream, so I won't repeat. You can go back once it's all uploaded. I have to go to bed. Thank you for all this. You know what? I think I might call it as well. Thank you for all coming. This is like 2.5 hours in, so I'll call it here. Thank you all. I messed up again and I'm doing it on my phone. We'll have it right next time. Thank you all for coming. Bye. Oh, actually, what's going on? Actually, how do I end on my phone? Okay, here it is.